We kick off with a boy pleading with the holy sword to obey his command. That was the hero's Excalibur, pure power, but it hammers their body and drains them hard every single time. So yeah, if they're using it again and again, you know it's a top priority. The girls don't just fight, they unleash the magic sword, thunder judgment, and even more brutal powers. While the boy in the back blasts away with magic to help everyone, he pushes his own power to grow, and then starts even enchanting other people's magic, until he ends up repairing the magic swords too. And he rushes to apologize to one of the girls, because she was the last to heal and help everyone. The whole squad was dialed in at full power, and handed it all to the protagonist, like the fate of the world was suddenly in their hands, while everyone else moved on their own way. A few days later, Allan, the hero, pulled Ishua aside and admitted he'd been banished. Scared to death, he blurts out, "What happened? It all happened way too fast, and now you're about to banish it." Though it was meant to drain every last bit of power, Allan ends up just telling Ishua to shut up. Everybody in the group stayed out of power trouble, no exceptions, and Ishua tried to spill the reason, "I'm helping everyone." But Allan snapped, calling Ishua a liar, insisting there's no way he could possibly have that kind of power. Honestly, Allan was seething. He claimed Ishua is nothing but a useless guy, swarmed by the girls in the group, and that she'll never be truly happy with him. Then Allan blurts out that the whole crew agreed on it together, and that's when Ishua freezes, completely paralyzed. Still not buying that the whole group agreed, she grabs Ishua's attention and orders him to vanish. After wandering a bit through the lost forest, Ishua never saw the banishment coming, because Manabara was this magical job that pulled the whole group in, and it devoured power so hard the members who took it basically had to be ready to burn through it. And since they can't use magic, they're basically the kind of people who hustle behind the scenes, fully all in, and some folks, like Allan, see that life as a straight-up loss. Yeah, in this crew you've got heroes and saints, mages, and even women carrying magic swords, and every single one of them is loaded with high-stakes jobs that drain power like crazy. Fighting while they're trying to calm everyone down and steady, the power isn't going to be simple, especially now that Ishua is scared for all of them, and if this really is everyone's choice, then there's no stopping it. Then someone yanked Ishua's focus, and he snapped his head around, terrified, trying to figure out what in the world was happening. It's one of the girls, and that twist hits right, making Ishua light up with pure happiness. He smelled a woman's scent, yet he insisted it wasn't any of that. Right there stood Saint Julia. She always pressed Ishua with one question: why did he leave everyone behind? She was part of the heroes group, and she also worked side by side with Ishua at the Royal Adventurers Academy. Ishua can't stop replaying it. How could he have walked away from everyone? He insists it was a unanimous call, all agreed, but the saint hits back, saying it makes zero sense for a crew that leans on so much power to suddenly throw Ishua out. Then the protagonist tries to blame it on what Allan said, and right as Julia gets pulled into the chaos, she ends up totally lost, staring at that hero type and wondering why he'd think that was the right move. And Ishua couldn't help feeling a weird rush of happiness because he totally understood what he was doing. Then Julia showed up like she'd pull him back, only to decide, right then and there, that from this moment on she'd follow him. Ishua just couldn't wrap her head around it. She insisted that if she tried something like that again, it'd blow up her life with even more trouble, and Julia snapped back that she didn't want a hero to be thrown out like this. Because Ishua had been helping her from the very start, everything she became was all thanks to him, so yeah, that's why she was exactly that. Then the girl shoots her hand up, begging to go with him, and though Ishua feels a jolt of embarrassment, he can't help smiling. And it all ends with him thanking her, right after Ishua asks how they found him. The girl starts to sweat, admitting she's been carrying one of the protagonist's hairs, so she used search magic. That's when they decide to keep going. Julia blurts out to Ishua, "So what are you doing next?" Time keeps ticking, and Ishua hustles with them toward a nearby city to get ready for their trip, until they suddenly hear someone calling for help. A whole band of knights is thrown into trouble, then Ishua steps in, determined to help everyone. And yep, just like everyone predicted, right after they got involved, a lord demanded to know who they were, and Ishua stepped in and promised, "I'll help everyone with this magic power." But it was a mid-tier monster, tough as nails for rookies, showing up as the saint's opponent, the same saint everyone calls a genius thanks to sheer power. At that moment, Julia was riding an insane kind of power, a spell technique so high it hits the maximum level of magic, and she just casually wiped the enchantment clean, revealing they weren't using one trick at all, but a whole stack of enchantments wrapped inside that power. She was overflowing with excitement, and he still had a strict limit on the combo he could pull off, while Ishua poured power into the magic itself, fine-tuning it, and deliberately boosting everyone's attributes with every circle he helped bring online. He hurls every ounce of his power at the girl, convinced that if he overwhelms her, his own force will finally drop. Then she unleashes that innocent chant and boom, it sparks an insane surge of power that makes everyone panic. Even the wolves that get wiped clean from existence. The undead that were just wandering around get wiped clean from the world, gone like they never even existed. The explosion tore through everything like a raging thunderclap, bigger than anyone could have imagined. Julia can't believe it. This was totally new magic, and she's still trying to wrap her head around how it even works. Ishua snaps that she went way too far and accidentally healed every bit of impunity, turning it all into a holy island. But the girl just keeps smiling, and that's when Ishua starts feeling completely lost. Then the Lord lines in and demands, so who were those two? After a while, with the Lord's help, they finally reach the city, and Ishua can't stop thanking him for guiding him to the village, because the truth is, the Lord brought them there to thank them too. That's all there is to it. And that was the first time you ever heard of magic this powerful, and the way it could be activated through magic transfer blew your mind. Normally, it should have been impossible, but Ishua simply turns the impossible into reality. Julia can't spark magic at her own scale, so Ishua steps in like the bridge that channels mana to her. Plus, he can grasp high-level magic on sight, fine-tune it, and optimize the power, which is why Ishua is basically superhuman. A plate of nuts finally rolls in, and the Lord snaps in irritation, telling them not to hand it to his savior. Then the girl panics and apologizes, saying with power running low lately, they can't just spare that. Ishua blurts out what's going on, and the Lord fires back that it's just a tiny life anyway, so he can't keep the refinery running all by himself with all that equipment. At first, they were custom-built from giant seeds to run the refinery, but years of no maintenance crushed their production, and that drop in output left them no money to fix a single thing. So yeah, they're trapped in a vice from a distant future, and this village won't just fade out, it'll probably be gone for good. Ishua and Julia lock eyes and agree they've got to understand this. If they're low on power, they leave it with Ishua. The Lord only says, he just asked me to thank him, and nothing else, because they refuse to bring any more trouble down on Ishua. Julia insisted it was all okay, because Ishua wasn't just lucky, he was genuinely good at heart, the kind of person you couldn't help but follow. They rush straight to the spot where the maintenance happens, because the place is in terrible shape, and for years they've decided to handle it all by themselves. Ishua steps up, snaps his fingers over the tool, and warns, it won't last, can't take this for long. Then he slams both hands together with pure force and yells that he's going to fully recharge. Everything starts blazing like crazy, and the Lord's confidence finally cracks as fear comes rushing in. Ishua had already been taught how to pour mana from his own body into non-human objects, and now he was the one responsible for keeping the hero group's magic gear in top shape. Of course, if he burns through a ton of mana, the attribute gets shoved back fast, and suddenly everything wipes clean like it's brand new, blazing with raw power. Right after the Lords finally panic and realize every single bad thing has vanished from those machines. And now they could finally tap into their peak strength. If the power was lined up just right, it would be insanely useful, because they were also fixing that magic circuit that's been breaking down for a while. Ishua blurts out an apology for the wait, but the Lord cuts in, saying it wasn't even that long, that he pumped raw power into the gear, restored everything it needed, and even threw in a boost to the magic too. It was like the kind of work only the most powerful engineers could pull off. Right after the Lord asks who Yeshua is, he steps forward, introduces himself, and then drops the bombshell that he's just a mana-bar. The Lord snaps that he can't just label her a simple mana-bearer, and he even clocks the magic she used earlier, because everyone knows it as magic, not some mystery power. And Julia steps up and declares, I'm officially recognized by the church as a saint, and after everything that just went down, she's already earned the title for real. The Lord is left completely stunned, because yeah, he did bring a saint right to that place. And if Ishua somehow ended up becoming the hero. Right after Yeshua points out that everyone's been misunderstanding him, and that Julia should deny it too, the Lord snaps in with an apology for every bit of rudeness. The girl was so fired up by the Lord's words that they were a perfect match that she practically buzzed with excitement, completely forgetting what was happening around her. After the Lord comes out safe, he throws them all a grateful nod and says it's party time, because the hero just saved their lives, and they're cracking open the finest alcohol they've got for him. And turns it all into a full-blown mess, because the Lord finally admits he has no clue what the protagonist's real situation is, and if he says it isn't like that, then it must be wildly different, right after Ishua brushes it off with, no, they wouldn't even get it in the end. Then a lady nearby steps in, saying she's watched thousands of heroes put on a show, but that one was the most humble and the most real, and in the end, that village just refuses to listen to anyone else. And even Julia admits it. She says he was right. And Ishua was the real hero. Scared out of his mind, Ishua whispered. Something brushed up against him from behind, and it sent a jolt straight through his nerves. Julia blurts out, "What is it?" But Ishua can't even figure out what's going on. Something felt off. Turns out she'd already downed alcohol before any of this even started. That's how she ended up wasted, and before anyone knew it, every soul from the village started getting drunk right along with her. Even Julia pounces on him and tries to steal a kiss from the protagonist. Meanwhile, Allan, the real hero, was scrabbling to get inside a cave. Maria suddenly blurts out, "Was Allan right?" Because they were itching to charge a top-tier high-class dungeon, only to realize Ishua was missing, and Marcella snapped back that it wasn't just Ishua gone, Julia was missing too. Allan can't shake the feeling he always knew the bathroom was going to turn into trouble, because of course Ishua and them were right there. Allan blurts out, "Keep it down, no worries if the incompetent don't show up, just follow me." The girls lock eyes and trade quick, nervous looks. And then, in the end. And that's how a true hero fell, and why it still hurts to think about. An Amana bearer who'd just been thrust into the spotlight as the hero. Back in the village, everyone buzzed about the hero and begged Ishua to come back, but Ishua tried to explain, "I'm not the hero anymore," and they just wouldn't hear him. Then Julia stepped in, asking if it really was okay, because in their eyes, Ishua is the hero who saved them. Right after they ask where they're heading, Yeshua blurts out that he needs to go back for the license and register himself as an adventurer. It felt like I got dropped into a brand new life, like I'd been reborn from the inside out. Meanwhile, trapped in that cave, Allan grabs his magic sword again and puts it to work. He starts questioning whether this dungeon is even high class, because it felt way too easy, no mana bearer, and not even a saint guarding it. Dungeons around the world get ranked at the Adventurers Guild, from brutally low to death-dealing high, where rookies might clear the easy ones, but veterans hit a wall and can't get past the high tiers. Maria finally tells him they've got to figure out how to power the way back, because Ishua wasn't there, and Marcella adds that Julia wasn't either, so they can't keep letting themselves get hit like this over and over. Allan finally blurts out that those two were completely useless, and these cowards would have been sprinting away from high-class dungeons, like, who needs a mana bearer, right? Turns out, Maria remembers something Ishua always hammered into them. The best mana bearer is the one who keeps the whole party from ever fearing mana corruption. Then danger swoops in, she's almost attacked, and he dodges destruction of that monster once and for all. Meanwhile, Marcella is right there, cutting down the monsters like it's her job. Allan went all in the fight, then declared the group was flawless, so everyone could drop their worries. But then something unreal finally crashes the party. And she doesn't even notice something's off with Maria's magic sword, right as Ishua isn't there, so Marcella can't keep leaning on it like that, and her power is about to hit the limit. Allan can't accept that they're being called partners of the hero group, so he snaps into action and makes a request to his holy sword. But then it hits, his head starts pounding, and he drops hard to the ground, completely out of his mind. Allan couldn't make sense of what was happening. His head throbbed so hard it felt like it was about to split in two. But his body was running on empty, low on power for the first time ever, and it had never happened to him before. And yeah, Allan's got a power reserve way bigger than an average person, so if he sticks to normal abilities, he won't have to sweat running out anytime soon. Turns out the hero's holy sword ability guzzles power like crazy. He was supposed to run dry on mana the moment he became a hero, but because the king ordered him to form a group with Ishua right away, that mana shortage never hit. The girls hurry over to ask if Allan's okay, but pure terror is written all over his face, because he spots a lizard there, and it's a high-class monster. He could have wiped that monster out with zero trouble, until now, because suddenly it felt like he wasn't the hunter at all, he was the meal. Allan snaps around and bolts, yelling for Marcella to follow and guard him, but she tells him Maria is still out there fighting. So he lays it out plain, if they keep going like this, their whole lives are headed for a brutal attack, and they matter way more than just some girl swinging a magic sword, so the hero's survival has to come first. Marcella finally snaps, drops her head, and Allan goes, "What were you doing?" She shoots back that she can't walk away, she'll never abandon friends who are fighting for their lives. And that Allan has no business calling himself a hero, especially if she's already out of power. Now she's got one move left, clutch her staff, and slam it into anything that stands in her way. Allan demands why she's going all in with physical attacks, but Maria just wipes out the monster, and the girls end up back to back. Maria tracks down Marcella and leans in, demanding she remembers Ishua's training on fighting without power, because it's absolutely everything. But one person ignored the training, and now they're getting crushed. Allan is the one screaming his lungs out as those monsters close in. Maria jumps in to help Allan, and that one move makes the monster crash down to the ground. And then she slams the truth down. She'll never leave a companion behind, unlike him. And now they refuse to quit until the very end, no backing out, because they'd go back together as one. Right after he barely made it back, the dungeon took off and the moment started unfolding. Somehow they're all worn out. Maria hasn't fought with nothing but swords in forever, and now it's clear. The second you touch magic to your blade, everything gets wildly complicated. Allan can't help it. He blurts out why they're suddenly retreating and what they're even doing. Like, are they really having fun right now after they ran from the battle without conquering the dungeon? And tell me how that's a hero group when the only one meant to use magic swings a staff like a weapon, and the magic swordwoman sticks to daggers. Plus, how do we even call him a hero after he wiped out every enemy in his path? If it really came to that, he'd be the reason they all failed. Maria finally spills the truth. Allan was the first to run out of magic power. Allan snaps back that it wasn't magic at all, just a brutal headache. Maria warns him to stop forcing the holy sword everywhere, but Marcella cuts in cold. Talking to someone like him is pointless. The two shoot off a terrible glare, and when one of them ends up right, Allan can't stop staring, because he's still stuck wondering what's behind those looks. And since night was creeping in fast, they should have crashed in a nearby village, but he didn't get why everyone was side-eyeing and whispering like something was off. When he got there, it was the very village Ishua had helped. Everyone was grinning like the world finally made sense. Allan stepped up, told them who he was, and said they'd been stuck clearing a dungeon and just needed a place to rest. The lady leaned in and asked if there was another hero, and Allan pressed her for the real story. Then she revealed it, a hero named Ishua, an absolute legend alongside Julia, the kind who just swept in and helped everyone. The moment she asks whether that failure counts as a hero, the lady snaps, way too irritated, and snarls that he has absolutely no right to talk about hero Ishua like that. Then rage hits. He spits that Ishua is a vicious faker, a total deadweight who even got kicked out of the group by the hero himself, and he scoffs that this kind of talk makes no sense at all. The girls are stunned by this banishment, especially since Allan insists Ishua walked out on his own, so Allan brushes off their questions and orders them to be taken to the best inn, where they can stock up on the finest magic power recovery potions. The lady leans in and asks, "If I tell you, do you really pay me back with money?" Then Allan snaps even harder, demanding if he's going to charge money for the stuff he wants to grab around the city, because that's one of the hero's privileges, and every city ought to cooperate. The lords bristle at his tone, and right then Maria finally blurts out what Allan is even talking about. And that was the only time it ever happened, saved strictly for special circumstances. Then people crowd in around them with weapons drawn, and the lady snarls that Allan has finally shown his real colors. If he's going to play it like this, he's nothing but a fake hero, taking money from people right there in front of them. She snaps that he's being ridiculous, and the lady adds that Ishua wouldn't even take a thank you from them, nothing like him at all, until Allan tries to explain himself and gets an egg smashed right on his face. And suddenly everyone's on his case, demanding he get out, saying they won't stand for that kind of behavior. Then Maria snaps that they have to run, there's no staying here. Then Allan, sprinting, whips around and shouts that everyone needs to remember this, because they're running through it right now. Maria can't stop replaying it. Why did he suddenly banish Ishua, and did she really need to lie right then? She snaps, tells everyone to shut up, and makes it clear she's blocking some useless screw-up who isn't even worth the hero squad's time. Maria got it like Ishua mattered to the group, just like Marcella, and then she snapped, asking if he'd apologize now, and whether he even realized he couldn't beat a dungeon without Ishua's help. Allan cut in immediately, telling everyone to shut up, saying they were all holding back and that they shouldn't boss him around right then. And when the girls realize they might get banished too, their mouths go completely silent. Then Allan can't shake the worry. Did he just say something awful? Maria snaps that if he's spouting nonsense like that, there's zero reason to hang around that group without Ishua. He's not worth saving, and they're only following him to get themselves killed. Their own lives wiped out. What a nightmare. Then Allan doesn't even say the two owe him for letting them into that hero group. He just watches them chuck their card away and immediately head for a high-class dungeon, using any magic power potion they can get their hands on. Allan says that honorable license belonged to the hero group, but they're handing it back. Allan shrugs and says, "At least I can recruit new people sooner or later. Because I'm that famous, I could spark a revolt across the whole continent for me." The girls line in and say, if this is really true. They'd keep their distance and watch from afar, so they had to go. Then they pause, baffled, so if this isn't abandonment, they need to step up to Ishua right now and demand answers about what's going on. Marcella could use the detection ability she'd just learned, and for some reason she also had Ishua's hair tucked away like it might matter later. Maria called it a wild coincidence, because she had the same detection power too, and somehow she was carrying Ishua's hair as well. They lock eyes and burst into laughter at the exact same moment, claiming it was the most unbelievable coincidence imaginable. Then the two unleashed their abilities and turned the fight on. And their final stop was a tiny town packed with fresh-faced newbies right nearby. Allan shoots them a warning, saying, "Don't mess with me," and insisting he's the hero, so none of that crap should ever happen. But hold up, Allan's mind snaps right back to recruiting Ishua again, and after what happened, Ishua better be in trouble by now, because when he finally does it, Allan's probably imagining him bursting into tears of pure joy. The instant Allan taps his discovery skill, a rare power blooms, letting the hero pinpoint where his own group is at that very moment. Under that license, Ishua ended up in a brand new city, and he should have seen it coming the second he was standing there. Right after Ishua finally lands in his city, Julia finally breaks the silence and says they've arrived at the novice city, right on time to grab her brand new adventurer license. The woman finally realizes her power isn't nearly as strong as she thought. But her attack and defense barely mattered. Her real power lived in her brain and her magic power, just like you'd expect from the saint of the heroes group, absolutely crushing it with both intelligence and raw magical might. Now it was Ishua's turn, because this was the Novice Adventurers Guild, and the moment was all his. Julia and Ishua dropped their hero group badges, and now it was time to sign up as brand new adventurers. That crystal was their status marker, and every single rank got stamped in order, from F all the way up to S. The second his fingers brush the ball, it ignites with an insane, dazzling glow. Everyone's scratching their heads, totally stunned, because no one can wrap their minds around a monobara doing something like this. He's got that high status for a reason. His strength is a class, his attack and defense are both B-class, his intelligence hits A-class too, and when only the brightest traits survive, you know something S about to shine. The receptionist stared at Ishua and made sure his magic power hit the impossible SSS class. Every adventurer gets thrown into pure confusion, staring at that classification like, wait, we've never seen this before. So they start blaming the mechanism. Maybe it's broken, we should try another way. But that thing is already pointing dead on, and Julia can't ignore it. She's never seen Ishua run out of mana before. The proof hit hard the second the saint showed up. This mana bearer carried an insanely high rank nobody's ever seen before, and Ishua's magic power just wouldn't run dry. Basically, he could cash in those skill points anytime he wanted. You could see how pure genius he was, and even the saint couldn't hide her own brilliance either. His adventurer classification is stuck in the medium class, so from this day on, they're officially adventurers. And the moment everyone clocks what that means, panic hits hard, because how could they start as medium class at all? Only Ishua snaps everyone back into focus, saying they don't deserve special treatment. Everyone kept pushing. Either Ishua was brought into the group, or he joined the people's side, and they promised they'd both pay him extremely well for everything. Ishua can't help but stare in shock, because yeah, this is bad news, since Julia's a painfully shy type, and she can't stay in saint mode for long. Yeshua tells Julia she's a saint, then admits he's a mere mana bearer with hardly any worth. Someone finally snaps and shouts for everyone to shut up, calling it a lousy convenience, and telling everyone to stop crowding Ishua. Then Ishua clocks it instantly. It was his sister behind it. Her name is Diana, the Sword Saint, and she's not just an adventurer, she's at the very top, the highest rank there is. And that's when Liliana, the heroine, steps in, takes down a terrifying demon, one of the 4 demon kings, right through pure force, like she owns the rules of this world. And Diana snaps everyone to a halt, orders them to stop pushing forward toward him, and blurts out, wait, what's going on? And if Ishua wanted to tag along with her crew too, right after they all got tangled up in the chaos, with Diana sorting her Sword Saint classification for the recruitment battle, he jumps in with a quick apology, because they only wanted to team up for a bit. The leader could qualify as a hero too, and they'd be back anytime. Only Julia steps in, snapping that they'd already been through it with a hero who never even understood his own power, yet Diana fires back that Liliana isn't like that at all. Still, Julia pushes harder, asking if anyone can truly trust a leader who won't even show up to face the person herself. Diana finally understands just how brutal the situation really is. Ishua drops an apology and tells Julia she was just worried about what she said earlier. It's the first time he's meeting Diana face to face, and somehow he feels she's trustworthy. But if Diana truly trusts Liliana, then Diana should be steady too, not shaken. Ishua admits he was banished, and for a while he thinks about sticking to only the people he knows. Then Diana apologizes for everything that happened, and it finally clicks that she understands the whole situation now. She finally goes to Liliana herself and throws out a real apology, admitting she botched the most important job, recruiting her own brother. And honestly, that's how raw her sincerity comes off, because Diana's reputation for ability is legendary. And for once, if they just take the offer, she has to turn into a totally unforgettable heroine. Right after Diana crawls back to her hero, choking out an apology for messing everything up. It was some tiny detail hiding inside her magic, and the more she trained, the more it tangled into something complex. So even Diana, who doesn't get the technical magic stuff, could still clearly see what was going on. Then Diana whips her magic ball up into the air, and it vanishes in a flash, so she finally snaps her eyes open. Finally, she admits she gets it. Ishua's got his own damn circumstances, and there's just no way to help him. Liliana, our genius heroine, became famous the moment she was born, because the hero's job was handed to her right then, and every time she crushes one of the four corners, her legend just keeps skyrocketing. And yeah, besides all that, everyone figures she still needs to keep training, because even after she turns arrogant, they won't let her stop. Still, as a hero, she had to deliver every ounce of knowledge she'd gathered, yet her emotions spiraled out of control. But in the end, the poor girl just breaks down and cries nonstop. Diana kept wondering why something like that happened in the first place, because if Ishua hated her that much, even she couldn't figure out who that poor little girl was, always crying like her heart would break. Then Diana tells Liliana that the heroine has to meet him face to face, so she can talk to him, really get to know what kind of guy he is, while Liliana shoots back that there's no way she can pull something like that off. But then Diana blurts it out. Liliana felt love at first sight the very moment she laid eyes on him, yet they still didn't manage to see him again until what feels like forever, just wandering around the city. So they'd better team up on the same mission and give each other that little nudge, because of course, Diana would take charge and pull something like that. She was still just a little girl, pacing back and forth like her heart was on a leash, and at that age, falling in love felt completely natural. Still, this little clash turned out to be a huge win for Liliana. Next morning at the Adventurers Guild, Ishua and Julia stepped up front and declared, "All right, this is it. Our real life as adventurers starts now." Right in the morning, they ran straight to the mission board, and it was packed with people, all rushing to grab the very first missions handed out that day. They end up getting rattled by every single person in that crowd. Right beside it, there was a mission room, scrolls littered across a table, and he leaned in to inspect the requests. Then a receptionist walking by blurts out, "Start the activities right now," and points straight at those requests sitting on the table. Ishua finally blurts out what's going on. Turns out they needed help with a power reactor to take down a horde, a task Julia practically owns, and yeah, someone out there is also hunting for a cat. That cat request was totally fine. Turns out they're about to grab every single one of those things sitting on the table, and the receptionist even checks, was everything okay? Like they're about to seal the deal on the requests they're honestly having a blast with. Then the girl fires back that it's exactly like Ishua to assume he'd accept requests that weren't good enough, and right on cue, Ishua snaps, "So what's going on?" The receptionist shrugs and says those missions got ditched because the payout didn't match the pain, and nobody believed they could pull off something that intense. So by the end, Ishua's convinced it was just a weird, "go find my cat" request after all. Then they end up shouting through the whole city, calling every cat they can find to hunt down the one they're looking for. They didn't want any cat, they wanted the exact one from the request, and somehow they tracked it down. While that was happening, Liliana and even Diana kept a close watch on them. Liliana asks how long it took them to track down that cat, and since it wasn't a mission or some magic power, they're sure it would take a whole day, or maybe their entire lives, yet somehow the people found it in just 30 minutes. On the very next mission, they had to slam down a raging horde of undead. And somehow, Julia ends it all with just one devastating blow. Ishua tells her she went too far again, but it's because she was working with Ishua. Liliana gets stuck thinking about it, amazed that someone could pull off something like this. A horde of undead wiped out using only magic power, with no costly potions that would have been needed in the normal world. But it might not have been because of the mana bearer standing right beside them. Still, they're convinced that next time they'll definitely need backup. But somehow they pulled it off, restoring all 32 reactor powers, and it was downright unreal. Then a crew of villains shows up out of nowhere, claiming they're handling those reactors, while admitting they're from a rival company and that they were the ones stirring up trouble. Then the rival company's boss roars that he should charge in and knock out every last reactor, just like that, and Liliana fires back, "Good, now it's your time." Ishua shouts for everyone to hide, panic buzzing as he tries to figure out his next move, because too many people stand in his way to take them out one by one, and the enemies are all humans, with the power actors everywhere. So when Julia's got those big, sweeping attacks, there's no point trying anything smaller or more pointless. If that's really how it goes, he slams a barrier around himself and seals off every way through. People start yelling, "What the heck is going on?" Then a sickening feeling crawls into their heads. That was a powerhouse magic technique, pure focus to speed up magic power recovery, but it comes with a brutal price: nausea and pounding headaches, especially for anyone who isn't built for magic power jobs. Leaving just one guy standing, he can only blurt out, "How am I supposed to handle something like that?" Ishua clicks instantly. This wasn't some ordinary fool at all, but an adventurer type hired for cold cash. He needs to be the kind of person who can drop people cold with something like that. Then he unleashes a magic blast, hurling it straight down on that guy, who's still standing there. And the impact hits him so hard that he crumples to the ground. Everyone stared and demanded what he was doing. Then he admitted he'd shoved magic power into that guy on purpose, because the moment called for force. It was like he dosed him with magic intoxication, and the second it hit, the man blacked out instantly. By flooding the area with concentrated magic, you could use it as an attack, but the trick was first meant to help someone recover their magic power. Ishua's power, though, it sits beyond the human limit, and that's exactly why he's showing this now. Liliana says, "Maybe next time you'll need me," but Diana is already done. Right at that breaking point, she's insisting the situation they're walking into won't need anyone's help at all. While all of this chaos raged on, Allan finally bursts into the city, saying he finally charged up to that place. Right then, Ishua shot back toward the city. Everyone's been whispering about him, the way he's in a class adventurer, the missions he's been grabbing that nobody else dares to touch, and yeah, it sure looks like he's got the power to pull it off. So the receptionist tells him Ishua's suddenly gotten pretty famous, and Ishua insists it's probably just a big misunderstanding, because he's only been taking the missions. Then Allan bursts in, yelling that he finally found Ishua. Ishua and Julia stare back, completely stunned, because they can't make sense of what just happened. Ishua blurts out fast, "What happened to Maria and Marcella?" Allan just smirks and admits he ditched those incompetents, and Ishua fires back, "So why, if they're fully talented women, would you throw them away?" Then Allan leans in and claims it's his move. Great news for the two who'd already slipped past the lowest adventurer rank in that tiny city, because he's about to pull them into the heroes group. Everyone stared in disbelief at what was unfolding before their eyes. Allan demands answers for what's going wrong, tells them to appreciate what's happening, and even promises they can get back to the glorious heroes group, only he totally misses the fact that people are trash-talking him behind his back. He can't shake the feeling, what was so hilarious in that moment. Then the adventurers spill it. They once heard a tale from the saint about a dumb hero who kicked Ishua out of the group. Allan can't believe he's been getting labeled the stupid hero around here, so he snaps, "What are you even talking about?" And the worst part, they're not some bottom-tier trash. These two are medium class right now, but Allan insists that maybe the real newbies should be extremely low class instead. That's why they were grinning so hard, because his banishment had basically brought in extraordinary adventurers. Soon, people started showing up left and right, and he must have been struggling, because with how inconvenient everything was in that moment, it felt like he just couldn't scrape together enough magic power. Allan's irritation sparks as he demands he should start yelling at those people right now, but Ishua cuts in, saying they're doing great at this moment, and they've got no intention of returning to the group. And if he's got no other missions lined up, that'd be perfect. Allan couldn't wrap his head around it. Before long, Ishua had the nerve to slam his offer shut, and on top of that, everyone laughed at him. He'd been rejected by that loser, and Allan refused to let it slide. So Allan grabs his sword and whips around toward Ishua, but right then, Diana materializes out of nowhere and snaps at him to stop. Allan shoots a question, "What was that woman doing in front of me?" Diana then fires back, explaining that guild rules are deadly strict, and because of this mess, she's locked in as his opponent, and if Allan thinks he can handle her, she'll make sure everything gets settled. While she kept talking, a jolt rippled through his body, pure intimidation, sharp as lightning. That woman was dangerous, so he snapped his back away and walked off fast. He said, "That's enough for today. Maybe I'll come back another day to settle this." But Diana snapped that it was awful that the guy couldn't even tell the difference between the two people, and right then Ishua thanked her. Diana snapped that he didn't need to thank her for anything, because Ishua never had a say in the general memories, so of course he couldn't understand what was happening now. His name was Espur, and she's praying he won't cause trouble anytime soon. And just when you think it's over, the story keeps roaring. Every single one of them grinds nonstop to crush every request they're handed. Then about a week later, Ishua got hit with a mission. Go straight to the elf village, report what he finds to the guild, and just that job alone paid him 30 whole gold coins. Then Ishua can't shake the feeling that something's off. Why were they here, and why did they shut down those low-reward requests? This isn't worth it for a veteran adventurer who doesn't. Sure, there are 30 gold coins, but there has to be more, and it's even stranger the client's name is missing too. Ishua couldn't stand the idea of throwing Julia into that kind of nightmare, so when the receptionist tells him to just head to the elf village and report that everything's fine, Ishua shoots back. Hold on a second. Do you seriously have a case like that? Why would nobody touch it before this exact moment? Right then, the receptionist totally blanks and swears she'll tell him what's going on. Turns out it's a straight-up message from the guild itself, sent directly to Ishua, just for him. They kept showing up, taking every request, and the plan was simple. The special reward would be worth all that money, so Ishua goes. That's a lot, because they only worked there for a bit over a week, even though he knew it was exactly the kind of thing he needed to say. They cooked up a plan to slip a pricey request to Ishua, acting like it was just another job, and if he'd only spare a glance around, they promised him an insane little trip. She said it was fine, but Julia's mind was already racing. She was figuring out how to travel with Ishua, just like that time before, not as another mission, but as a trip where it was only the two of them. Julia throws out the idea that they should take that trip at least once in their lives, and you can tell she's been fully locked in on the missions. She even helped push things over the finish line. Yesu tells him it's all good, just rest for a bit, then they can head to that place, and the second those words land, somebody's hair shoots up in shock. Liliana was the one who stayed there, quietly taking in the whole mess, then leaned in and told Diana, "You need to hear this. Our next stop is the elf village. Use that chance to win their trust and push us forward." Even if she was a heroine, her hiding skills kept leveling up fast, yet right now it gave her zero payoff. Then Diana leaned in and asked Liliana, "Did you feel anything strange this past week?" And doesn't she realize this is the perfect moment for those two to link up as a group? But Liliana's not hearing a word. She barrels up to the receptionist and demands to know if there are any requests near the elf village. Then the receptionist tells her there's a special job waiting. Take down a mutant monster species lurking nearby, and it's a top-tier mission in their guild, one of the hardest requests they've got right now, so Diana steps up to check the details and lock it in. They asked if it was okay, because to Liliana, that sounded downright calm, so the two of them could keep things smooth and avoid any trouble. Liliana pushes on toward that mission now, because staring up at them forever gets you nowhere. Eventually, they've got to move forward. 3 days flew by, and just like that, they've arrived, right where they need to be, and Julia finally spots the world tree from a distance, and you can tell she's got her jaw on the floor. Ishua can't believe it. How could a legendary tree be seen from that far? He swears it's been protecting the elf village for 200 years, and that it purifies the air around them like magic. An angel lit up those islands with a miracle the monsters couldn't hold back, and out of that purified seed, made clean by the birth of those people, a massive tree erupted and grew huge, and then people finally began to appear on the island. And according to the legend, he thanked the whole world, so people in that area finally lived in peace and happiness. Then Ishua clocks it. Julia is crazy about these stories, and she's been staring at the world tree like it holds her secrets. Something's off, really off, and Ishua can feel it from miles away. The area around the world tree is crawling with weirdness. Maybe it's all in his head, but right when that thought lands, Liliana kept scrambling through the chaos, insisting she couldn't afford to lose sight of Ishua for even a second. Diana snapped that she couldn't handle that endless swarm of monsters, so he'd better march on foot to the world tree. Too bad, because right then they were gasping for air, and every brutal inhale felt heavy enough to trigger disaster. So they dropped a massive healing spell right then. Diana can breathe through a quick purification of the ability, but it's only temporary. Then she wonders if that miasma is coming from the monster's mutation. He needs to find what they're after soon. Then wham, a monster lunges at Liliana from behind, and there he is, right when the mission is finally staring them in the face. Then she says it'd be weird as hell if that guy suddenly popped out of nowhere just to finish the mission. After trading blows for a while, she got caught. An impact whipped her body around mid-fight, and Diana finally realizes her attacks aren't landing anymore. Maybe that monster had to improvise, and some of those wild moments end up promoting the power it's supposed to hold, like a king of monsters who absorbs everything around him until all that strength lands inside him. He got promoted straight into an even higher classification of monster. They couldn't fix it in time, so everyone snaps their attention on, because Liliana suddenly lifts her magic high into the air. Liliana popped into the world with a hero's gift, and it dumped insane magic power into her hands, so she could yank the whole crew, plus their enemies, straight into a virtual universe she'd built with her own mind. A deadly barrier that someone had forged right there in that space. They could bicker all day about whose setup had the edge, because one cheat tier power ruled them all, Hero's Mark. It was an inviolable territory, her private slice of space only, and every wish had to respect that sacred boundary. Now it's Diana's moment to step into the spotlight. Her sword starts to glow like it's alive. That's because this sword is the strongest thing Liliana can even picture, a fantasy blade that slices through almost anything it sets its eyes on. Then Diana springs into action with everything she's got, and she slices the monster down, right there, ending it. Then she grabs the blade and starts cutting, right away. Saying they finally pulled it off. That sword bounced off the monster like it was nothing, and she got flung backward with a brutal hit that shook her to the core. They both stare in disbelief at what's happening right in front of them. After a while, they can't stop spiraling, because even that special move got reflected, so what the heck happened out there? Maybe it struck too weakly, maybe the magic resistance was brutal, but then Liliana blurts out, "I'm running out of magic," and admits she can't keep that fantasy world standing for long. Then Diana lashes out from every angle, but no matter how hard she swings, she can't break through. Irritation spikes, and then it hits. She spots the attack barreling straight toward her, and the monster slams her with everything it's got. It flings her hard to the side. Liliana stands there, totally lost, like she doesn't know what move to make next. She refused to die in a place like this. She'd have to rise as a true hero, because only a power like that could take down the Demon King. The monster surges toward her, closing the distance fast. And then Liliana locks eyes with Ishua, because she hasn't lifted a single finger to help him yet. Then Liliana snaps to attention when she hears someone telling Julia, "Don't leave my side." Ishua couldn't stop wondering what kind of hell they were trapped in, while Liliana insisted that this land was untouchable, her personal utopia, so unless she gave the go-ahead, nobody could leave or enter. But somehow, Ishua still slipped into that world anyway. Liliana was treated like a straight-up genius, and everyone wanted in. People begged to join her group, crowding around the hero like it was the only way to matter. But she was just a little girl, no hunger to be a hero at all. A kid who could be fooled in a second, needed to carve her own path, push her way forward, and find her own way over. Liliana burst out of the castle and sprinted all over the place, hugging her tiny teddy bear like it was her lifeline. Until she stumbled, and the teddy bear slipped away, landing even farther ahead. Heartbroken, she wiped her tears and rushed to grab the bear, but it was filthy, and that's when Liliana broke down and started crying. Someone leaned in and asked, "Are you okay right now?" It was Ishua. He shot his hand up, ready to catch the little girl. Then time snapped back to normal, and the monster was seconds away from crashing in on her. She couldn't lose. If she lost the game, she'd still somehow come out on top. She stayed there because she hadn't done a single thing for that person yet. Then Ishua appeared right inside her territory, and Liliana was left there, staring, as she demanded to know why he was even there. Then he bolted over, rushing in to shield her from the attack. And the girl scrambles to thank him, so Ishua tells her he spotted her near the castle before, like he might finally know her name. Then Julia bursts out. Diana's name sat there, completely wrecked, barely holding on. Ishua snaps, "What happened, and how did everything get like this?" While Liliana shoots back, "Yeah, but how did you even get into that place?" All right, rewind a bit. Julia was using her power to purify the people around her, and all she wanted was to glimpse the world near the world tree. But they couldn't step into the village yet. Those elves shut the gate, saying no one could visit the world tree unless they were authorized. Right then they heard it. The travel guide swore the doors would open, and she threw every ounce of her power into purifying the world around them. Rage lit up her face as she snapped that she'd never heard of anyone getting barred from that village, and then she swung her power again, purifying them all back and forth. Ishua says it felt weird. She still couldn't knock all of them down. They didn't uncover anything special, just insanely high-class monsters lurking everywhere, and the whole thing got even more complicated the moment they stepped into the demon realm. Then she unleashes her power again, and the question hits hard, was that a high-class monster? Because they're getting wiped out in an instant, no question. Ishua's left staring, panicking over what to do next, since she's been acting just like that ever since they got here. The air suddenly turned thick and heavy, so heavy you could almost see it with your own eyes, and yeah, they definitely need to create a blazing shield of magic power wrapped them up tight. After that, the technique lets magic power refill like a tide, surrounding them with a sea of energy, but Elf Village feels weirdly off, like something's hiding in the shadows. So they should patrol the area just to be safe, because with that kind of concentration in the air, not many people could survive there. Ishua can't see past the trees, but the world tree still feels wrong, like the supposed-to-be fiction mission just flipped reality, and something terrifying is really going on. Then Julia blurts out what's going on, and Ishua admits he's hit with this weird, unsettling feeling. Then he closes in, until he finally reaches the spot where Ishua senses something feels off. He asks Julia if she can see it, because the artificial space is warping, and that's probably why the room smells so awful. But it was an insane, magical setup, and Ishua might finally be able to break it down. Once he cracked open the space, he charged in full force, and yep, it lands him right in the present time, where Liliana still can't wrap her head around how Ishua pulled it off. To crack the code and slip into her fantasy world, she can't even fully figure it out, not herself, not with that kind of power. And yeah, it tracks because Ishua, that guy's practically a monster. And he leans in and asks if that space is the girl's own ability, so it's got nothing to do with that awful smell hanging outside. Maybe she's quick enough to disarm the chaos before it turns into a full-on disaster on a massive scale. Right then, a monster lunges at them, tearing the moment apart. Ishua suddenly realizes it was a mutant ogre king, and now he can feel that stink getting stronger and stronger from here on out. Ishua unleashes his power and slams through them, charging right through to finish the job. The girl stares in disbelief as her magic power snaps back to full strength in a single instant. Then they turn to Julia and demand, "So, how did Diana do it?" She threw herself into every effort to heal the girl who woke up, asking where Liliana was, so when Julia finally got the chance, she accepted it with real pleasure. And then the sword woman fires off a question about why they're there, right as Ishua shows up out of nowhere. While Julia insists she can't scrub away the nasty smell she picked up outside. Then Ishua scrubbed her completely, and she even felt lighter in her bones, because those curses could be washed away with the exact opposite kind of magical power right after. It sounded weird, but since the magic bearers couldn't cast a single spell, we had to grind, studying and dissecting everything, even the attributes and combinations, so we wouldn't end up stuck as some low-income nobody. At that exact moment, he tears into the monster with everything he's got and crushes it. They push onward, then Liliana snaps into action, blasting and chopping through several fireballs on top of that monster. It was unreal. Everything that was going down felt impossible. Even if they could have worn it down for a while, that monster was still taking 0 hits, nothing was sticking. Then Liliana blurted out that she was finally happy to meet Ishua one last time, because the enemy in front of them was absolutely brutal, strong enough that they just couldn't beat it. She can squeeze out just enough time, so he gets to stand tall as the hero she wants him to be. Ishua finally clicks she was Liliana, the heroine after all. Even with his own instinct to throw himself into the fire, he can't help but think heroes just don't work like that. Ishua stands up and blurts that she misunderstood everything, and even if this opponent hits like a truck, it's not one that can't be beaten. Then Ishua throws himself in front of the girl and tells Julia to do it the same way they always do. Meanwhile, Ishua unleashes his power and sharpens every single one of them, restoring the whole group in one shot, plus he starts pumping extra effects into their bodies too. And he turns to everyone and promises, "I'll cover every last bit of magic power you spend, so you can use your abilities with 0 limits." Julia's going to crank her healing even higher, and she's hunting down even more magic powers for them too, so you'd better watch out for those instant death attacks, because they're nearly invincible, and if they keep feeding that insane magic compulsion, you don't get to walk away. Then Ishua barks for everyone to surge forward. Diana charges forward with everything she's got. Liliana can't even process it when the strike actually rips into the monster's belly, but before she can breathe, Julia throws her power full force and smashes the beast with everything she's got. That power was so outrageously strong it barely even counted. It only scratched that monster's hide, and now it was obvious this fight was going to be brutal and long. Then Ishua finally clocks what's going on, sounds like a newly promoted mutant, has a whole class of its own at that moment. And right now, all they can do is follow Ishua's move. At that moment, Ishua clamped onto the monster with both hands and heaved it up with everything he had, and everyone stared, wondering why he was doing it right then. The mana he was pouring out kept surging, louder and stronger, while they tried to wrap their heads around how he'd beat an opponent who'd leveled up after inhaling that nasty smell from outside. Then the truth hit them. The answer was simple, and he'd already told them before. He'd have to wipe out every nasty smell, then suck it all up clean. And that should mostly go back to normal after the promotion. he just has to snip it off like nothing's even happening, and Diana will do the rest once she realizes Ishua crushed the monster down to that state. Liliana, right on his heels, cuts in. They don't need to drag that fight out anymore. She wants a blade so ruthless it'll slice through anything, and the world she's built can forge even the mightiest sword she can dream of, and Ishua calls that the true power of a hero. Then Diana unleashes everything she's got, slicing the monster in half like it's nothing. After a long rest, they headed back down and clasped hands like they were sealing fate. He thanked everything that had happened back then, and once again, he said that same little girl was the one pointing him to Ishua. Then Diana leans in and tells Liliana to thank them properly, and right after, she drops the truth, "My name's Liliana." And Ishua tells her they met at the castle, because Allan's group invited him, and he still can't believe she's a real heroine. Then Liliana lights up, because Ishua actually recognizes her. Maybe she's even shyer than Julia, yet somehow that nasty smell vanished, and now they're realizing they're right on the edge of the World Tree's realm. Right then they were supposed to rush back to the village, play hero, and spill the whole story. Then they turned around and found something awful waiting for them. Pieces of the World Tree were gone, and that missing chunk sent the whole world into panic. Watching it all unfold, they couldn't believe what they were seeing. Liliana snapped into action and sprinted off, yelling for him to hurry to the village. Ishua snaps to it. Everyone expects her to be the hero, because she can practically feel the emergency buzzing in the air. Then she moves in on the guard and realizes it's the same people from before. Liliana flashes her money card and claims she's here to check out the village. Then the guard snaps, "Are you really from that moment?" And Ishua jumps in, "So what happened?" The guard shuts the door and snaps that he can't let them in, right before a stranger showed up calling himself a hero, and since then, he's been terrified there just pretending. Then they storm in, acting like they're on a mission, insisting they're gonna check out exactly what's going on. And as he pushes through, he can't even believe it. This village is fighting for survival through one nightmare after another, like nothing's getting better. They were told to check that moment. Then, when they finally got close, nobody could make sense of what was happening. With that voice alone, Ishua already figured out exactly who it was. Allan was the one standing right there, front and center. A few days earlier, a king pulled Allan aside and told him, "From now on, you're going to apologize for everything that happened, because you need to report every single thing the ones who ran off did." Even though Allan was still tied to the nobility, the king shoved a direct order into his hands: return to the royal capital and do it now. People were sure the whole world would finally catch on. Liliana, the so-called heroine, especially when she pulled off the impossible and even beat one of the four kings. Right under the Demon King, Allan's about to make a move like that. Allan could only blurt it out. His level shot up a little, right there, in real time. And he's not just clearing a high-class dungeon, he's conquering it, then pushing onward to even higher-class dungeons next. The king snaps, "That's enough." He's done with hearing the same old talk every single day, so he snaps and demands, "Where's Ishua?" The one he adored, the one whose words he loved to hear, even back when everything else was drowning out the rest. The king couldn't wrap his head around why Ishua's name was even getting dragged into this, until that instant, when they realized Ishua was the only one left, and he had no idea what to say. Then Allan blurts out that Ishua wasn't feeling well, tries that excuse, and the king snaps, "What happened?" Then Allan tells Julia she's with him, says he's just taking a breather, and reassures her not to worry, because next time he comes back, they'll have to rethink the mission they'll use to invade and make it actually pay off. Then the king shrugs it off and declares, "It's all good." Then he turns to Allan and demands action. He's got an urgent mission to discuss with Ishua, and they need to move right now. Right then, Ishua finally burst into the scene at the Tree of Life, and his jaw dropped, because the thing was way bigger than he'd ever imagined. Allan had heard whispers that some monsters got promoted and even showed up here, but nobody had run into them yet, until now. So he turned to the driver and demanded, "Tell me, do those insanely powerful monsters really exist around here?" The driver answered, "Yeah, we've even gotten deliveries like that before." And when he said it, Allan realized this was an area that was totally sealed off at that moment. Liliana, clueless at first, still pulled off the mission right beside that explosive moment. Then Allan just can't figure out why he ends up showing up right then. The driver swears he saw it. That girl wasn't just noble, she was strong and absolutely stunning. Allan clocks that he needs to become popular, so no matter what's going on, he'll hunt down the little girl and the female swordswoman who looked like a gorilla. Then he'll track down the real reason behind every phaser and every problem tearing through the place. And after that, those vicious monster rumors were total hot air, so he figured this would be a cakewalk, because luck was finally swinging back his way, full force. So yeah, he should slip back with zero trouble, no problem at all. Then he rolls up to the village and walks straight up to the guard to introduce himself, insisting nothing bad happened, no incidents at all. The guard can't wrap his head around it. Why is a human standing here, swearing that nobody gets in without permission? Then Allan claims he only showed up because of Liliana, and he demands, was she inside? He flashes his hero card and says he's here to investigate on the king's command. The guard can't wrap his head around how a hero could possibly show up alone. Like, is that even real? But then more elves arrive and say, fine, we'll let him in. Right there stood Chelsea, the elf queen, and Allan couldn't help noticing how insanely cute she was, knowing they had no other choice in that moment. With no answers anywhere, time was running out, and the elves had to team up with the humans. So the queen pulls Allan in and tells him to go all out, but she warns him, if the future threatens the world, he needs to follow one condition she'll demand, and he must not say a single strange word. Allan blurts out, what's going on, and tell me exactly what I can handle. But once he remembered what the king warned him, he marched in anyway and agreed, letting the story get told first, no arguments. If things start looking grim, he doesn't hesitate, he slips away before it gets worse. After witnessing every one of those citizens trapped in the harshest struggles, totally lost and terrified, Allan steps deeper into a nightmare, panicked about what might happen next and praying this doesn't get deadly. He even wonders where Liliana is and whether other heroes showed up before him, until the queen cuts in. He's the only human who's entered the village recently. Even with those limits, Liliana wasn't there at all, so maybe he should track her down first. But then it hits him, every word the old man said comes roaring back, like Liliana, and all her legendary deeds are playing in his head. But she tells him that was your chance, just solve the mystery on your own, and right when they get there, the king will finally know about him. Ishua was inches away from the tree of life. Realizing it was absolutely colossal, like the moment you get near it. He says it doesn't feel normal at all. The roots were already rotting from the inside, and that was the end of it. The tree of life was shedding vitality fast, and this so-called purification wasn't doing a thing. So the monsters kept escalating, smashing everything in sight. If this went on, the whole region would turn into a no-man's land, and no one would be able to stop it. The queen asks if he can handle something, tells them to cook up a solid excuse and bail, then Allan snaps back that he came here to investigate. Right after the words people told him snapped back into his mind. The queen peered at him with that hard, worried stare and demanded to know what happened. So she slips him the job and begs him to hold on to it, because he's the hero, and that's exactly why she trusts him. After he swore he could never go back, the only shot at healing was to return to the tree of life, so when the queen asked what they could do, he finally agreed to take a look. There was no way around it, I had to stare at the tree because even if it's pure magic, it can still be cured in time. The queen says it's just what a real hero would do, and that all they do is protect the tree of life, because it can't survive on protection alone. Then Allan gets that uneasy look and asks what they even meant, because those words hit hard. Even their own specialized team couldn't cure that tree. So maybe a basic recovery spell wouldn't cut it there at all. He wields resurrect magic like it's a secret weapon. It's a top-tier healing magic that can rewrite people's lives, and it's powerful enough to beat Julia herself, who doesn't even know it exists because it's kept secret. And then he gets a vision of his own reality. Then he stares at the roots, and they're still totally rotten, like the rot never even left. The queen snaps that this is all a cruel joke, and that those basic spells won't even scratch the surface, not a single bit. Then Allan blurts out, yeah, I knew that, this is just a setup, because whatever was living in him was already twisted by that same kind of infection, hanging in an abnormal state. Then he starts cooking up even more spells too. Everyone around him stared, confused and alarmed. Why was he calling himself a hero when they expected something else? And if they didn't get control of it fast, they'd be in deep trouble, the real problem. A sick mix of miasma and that magic power curse had turned into a completely abnormal condition. Then Allan snaps that none of this makes sense unless he gets results, because if he doesn't, he'll have zero idea what to tell the king. Then it clicks, there's a root there, swelling like crazy, and he can't shake the feeling it's a whole stash of evil magic power. Realizing exactly what was happening in that moment, he tells her he's got other plans now, grabs his sword, and declares the farce is finally done, time to unleash the hero's real power. The queen presses, what were you even doing? And he snaps back that he'll crush it once and for all. So he grabs the hero's power and slashes that place clean in half. He practically bursts with excitement, then the queen snaps and gets irritated, demanding, did you just lose your own head? Allan says he sliced through the heart of that awful power, and now they can finally breathe in peace. But that evil power just keeps swelling, like it's hunting for something it can't stop. And he can't help but wonder what's going on because it spread through the whole tree like a living stain, and without so much as a second thought, he dropped to the ground. And then he understood it. There was nothing left to save. The tree of life was on its last breath. And all that damage to the tree wasn't a mistake. It was pure instinct, the final chance they had to build a defense before that moment slipped away. Allan gets so lost he can barely think, and just then they crowd around him, demanding what he'll do now that he's crushed their only hope. Should he really be siding with the Demon King? Allan snaps back, insisting they're totally misunderstanding everything. And he's totally oblivious, like he has no clue that he doesn't know a single thing. And the second he hears Ishua's voice, who snaps his back turned on everything, demanding to know why he'd shown up there at all. Then they lean in and demand, "Allan, did you mess with the tree of life?" The guards finally admit it. He hacked right through every seal, keeping the bad power locked away. And Ishua can't believe it, asking why that boy would do something like that. And the queen lines in, demanding to know who they really were. Liliana steps up and calls herself a heroine, then admits the queen is someone she truly looks up to. Her title was granted on request, but she can't keep the tree of life safe, and if she fails, she'll even lose her own village, so the queen's name has to be taken away from her. Liliana steps up and snaps, "It's a lie, and it's way too soon to let me lose my composure." Then Ishua steps in, reaches out, and presses his hand to the tree, trying to sense its soul, and swears it's still alive, telling him he'll find a way to cure it, no matter what it takes. The queen demands how anyone could pull off something like that, and one guard snaps back, "Don't even bother believing in it right now, because after what they just witnessed, they can't believe in humans anymore." Liliana snaps that Ishua isn't some green novice at all. He's just a lowly mono-bearer, nothing more. Liliana, the heroine, can promise you one thing: everything will be fine. Because that dude would show up out of nowhere and pull the world back from the brink. The queen locks eyes with Ishua and instantly reads the deadly seriousness staring back. Then he demands everyone step back and lets him handle the job. The queen rises and warns them that if things keep going like this, the tree of life will die, so they can't just sit around and hope. Only one job matters: capture Allan. Once they grab him, Allan pleads for help, but nobody even listens. Then Ishua gets it. This isn't a small task anymore, and it's way bigger than he can handle. So he keeps tending the whole tree, but like clockwork, Ishua's magic won't run smoothly through it, because all those mana calculations left the spell kind of messed up, and the impunity thrown into the mix stalls the flow. That power kept surging, growing stronger by the second. If anyone tried to shut down the tree of life, they'd drop dead first. So he knew he had to fix the broken part fast and trap every last drop of the brutal power she unleashed. Right in the thick of it, he pours out an entire reservoir of magic power. The guards demand answers, what was going on, and how in the world he managed to mess with a magic circle and twist it out of shape. So he shoves his hand into the circle, convinced he's pulled off a trick, like he can twist the magic using dark power, because mana intensity and attributes don't match. Darker, denser magic hits harder, and it was first made to steal power from monsters. Then he starts carving several magic power holes, and orders Liliana to plant matching magic circles all around, since the foul magic hits hardest in spots he can't reach because he can't see higher up, and the moment Ishua calls her name, Liliana's heart starts hammering like crazy. Then once that magic circle was laid down around the key spots, the evil power got dragged in. Suddenly, it was way easier to rein in her magic. Once they yanked it from every angle, the truth hit hard. This insane method was real, and it might be the one thing that actually works. The queen demands to know who Ishua really is, and Ishua smirks. If she truly wants the answer, he's nothing more than a common monobar. Then he tells the heroine to keep doing what she's meant to do, right as the guard steps in and calls it out as wrong. The queen demands to know what happened, especially since they were finally starting to raise everyone's hopes. But the guard bursts out that every last house in the village has been swallowed by monsters. Everything felt wrong. Monsters were surging in power, getting stronger with every single breath. The Tree of Life's purification was almost done, until the monsters started mutating deeper and closer, more native with every second. And Ishua warned that if he stopped now, the Tree of Life would lose everything it had left. Liliana and he couldn't handle everything that was happening. Then, right then and there, Diana blurted out that she was happy. But now worry gnawed at her. She feared they'd just camp out, staring at those screens, and do nothing but that to work. So now they can finally push ahead, while Ishua drops to his knees and apologizes to the two, swearing the Tree of Life can be healed and the monsters will grow weaker, but they've got to hold them back so nothing terrible slips through. From that moment on, Diana pushes the idea that they should head out and stop anyone from getting through the gate. So now, with Julia by his side, they finally got their shot at their very first team-up. But it should be totally flawless. Those monsters crawling out of the forest could have been handled in seconds if the village archers had been on it right away. The rest that showed up on that street should have stuck right with them. And after slamming several monsters with their own abilities, Diana finally pieces it together. Julia's packing ridiculous firepower just by being Ishua's partner, and of course it's exactly like everyone expected, she's a saint. Right in the chaos, the villagers dumped every mana pot they had, but it still felt like it might not be enough. They squeezed every last drop, and even Julia started pouring power straight into Diana's body. She needed to test herself, see if she could actually handle it, because even so, they were still moving forward. And just after he hacked through a bunch of monsters, they threw spell after spell and pushed ahead, and the archers realized, yep, just like a heroine's crew, nothing about that power was even remotely normal. But maybe they just couldn't keep all that weight from spilling over. While all of that was going down, Ishua and Liliana pushed themselves to the limit, draining every last scrap of dark power from that cursed tree. And Ishua lines in and begs the girls to dig a little deeper and give it one more try. And that's exactly how they were handling it. Every time Diana got hit, Julia would dash in like lightning, slamming in to heal her. So they could smash back into the fight. Just when the mana potions hit rock bottom, more and more, their magic power and the monsters kept forcing their way up the very walls they weren't supposed to touch. And he stayed on standby, clinging to one thing, until the Tree of Life finally healed. While all this chaos unfolds, the Queen spots the report. Enemy forces are trudging up and slipping through the fence, and it's taking them too long. With the village one break away from disaster, she immediately demands answers about how the evacuation of the citizens is going. They were finally beginning to pull it off, but pushing forward was still brutal. Yeah, the foul stench was starting to fade, yet those monsters kept getting tougher by the second. Ishua has to rush off to that war and fight before anyone else does, and even the Queen begs for a loan mark. Then Ishua finally realizes it's already vanishing away. And he realized he couldn't rush it, he needed a little more time. Meanwhile, Diana gets an arrow slammed into her thigh, and the pain only keeps getting worse and worse. Even Julia was burning through her last bits of healing magic. When Diana finally looks ahead, terror claws at her as she realizes the monsters are right there, staring her down. But when she turns her head, she sees everyone going all in, swinging, striking, and fighting like their lives depend on it. Then it hits her right then, the only move left is forward. Then she lifts her sword, bracing for the very real chance that today might be the day she dies. So they could finally head home and keep training nonstop, pushing themselves until life felt actually worth it. Right then, once he finally laid eyes on everything unfolding before him. And then, right out of the sky, two people plummet down like the world just dropped them. And he unleashes a relentless assault, crushing every monster that comes at him. Diana blurts out, "What's going on?" and Julia instantly says she already knew exactly who it was. Right then, Maria and Marcella were the ones standing there. A few weeks back, Allan's crew crashed hard and couldn't clear a high-class dungeon, so he declared he was a legend and said he'd be the hero of this world and the whole continent. Maria and Marcella immediately snapped back, saying that was just terrible. And they'd be staring from a distance, watching every move they made like it was impossible to look away. And just like that, they bolted out the door. Then the two were ready to head straight to the city where Ishua was, but just as they started, someone stepped in and begged for help. A bunch of noble elites were getting crushed in the middle of a monster attack. And that's when the two finally snapped into action, time to chase after them. Maria pushes for a calmer spot, while Marcella insists they should race to the city as fast as they can. And if it happened with Ishua, that would only make things even easier. And after everything they'd been through, they desperately craved a little peace. But Marcella couldn't make sense of it at all. Charging toward that carriage, she was dying to head straight to the city where Ishua was, but they're being pushed the opposite way. Still, they can't just abandon those people, so they decide to carry on like it's a normal moment, then they'll finally make a straight shot for Ishua's city. But Marcella couldn't make sense of it at all. Right then, she was living it up in pure luxury. He shoved down luxury food in a place so opulent it practically sparkled. The gentleman thanked everyone for the help with tears in his eyes and said that the two had saved his daughter's life. The medicine they were hauling was meant to pull a little girl back from a deadly disease. Then Marcella grabs Maria and says, "We've got to go," but that gentleman stops them and makes them wait just a moment. And if he let them work for him, he'd push them until they were truly top tier, fully trained. Marcella thanks him for the job, but he tells her, keep adventuring, don't just become some noble's pet. So the noble begs them to stay, just one night, because he can't bring himself to face his ancestors, and that's the only thing holding the person who saved his daughter's life there. And that's exactly what he kept yelling. Then Marcella just couldn't make heads or tails of it. They keep getting begged to stay just one more night, and by now they've already been there a whole week, so Marcella and Maria are finally like, nope, we have to hit the city. But it looked like Ishua was shifting, just a little, like something big was about to happen. Then they leave and that gentleman tells them to come to his territory whenever they can, because now, at last, it's time to join Ishua. But Marcella just can't make sense of it. When Ishua burst in at the Adventurers Guild reception, he wasn't there, so everyone dropped their guard and finally relaxed. They headed straight for the elf village, hauling a special request straight to the guild, so they pushed forward with everything they had, then sprinted toward the area around it, nerves shredding them. Marcella blurts out that she desperately wanted to chase Ishua down, but the king's orders hit them like a wall, so they had to obey and couldn't just turn their backs. Maria asks if Ishua has been buried under all those leftover requests, and yep, that's exactly what's going on, if that's the case. With Ishua and the rest gone, the two step up to carry that request. So they kept handling everything else, jumping straight into monster after monster. Dogs everywhere, sniffing them out, carrying the heavy load, and rushing in to help the kids. Then they demand anything else left, and you can already hear a batch of missions getting reported. And they'll need to follow. But Marcella just couldn't wrap her head around it. Why a giant bird was swooping them up like they were prey. And right then Marcella leaned in and asked Maria directly, but her eyelids were already drooping, and sleep was stealing her away. Maria asks what happened, but the truth is way simpler. She just slept an insane amount. While they were out on a mission to gather herbs, a vicious bird swooped in and attacked both of them. And after that moment, it shot straight for her and dragged her right to the nest. And that's how they'd end up as the giant chicken's next meal. Maria clearly never wanted to wake up feeling like that, and that kind of attitude is what forces them into an escape. But wait, that bird was heading straight for the elf village with them in tow. Right then, Ishua would be right where he needed to be, and they'd come crashing in with that bird in tow. And honestly, maybe that was just the only way it could have gone. Something felt wildly off, because that bird was massive, like it might be even bigger than the tree itself. But Marcella snaps that none of it matters. When the tree of life is wiped out, they still push through, and that's how they end up arriving. He spotted those two and instantly dove in to help. Then Maria lunged in and started hacking into the monster, and cut them all down in one savage sweep. Marcella joined in too, firing off her spells for the same purpose. Julia finally bumps into the two again. Yeah, it's been ages, but somehow she's still remembered as absolutely incredible. Right then, Marcella thrusts a potion pot into Julia's hands. Julia snaps it down before anything can stop her. And after they wiped out those monsters, they finally cracked the path forward. Maria blurts out, "Who's the girl sitting next to me? She's got killer sword skills." Then out of nowhere, a brand new ally shows up to jump in and save the day. Liliana snapped into action and hurled an attack. Obviously, Marcella and Maria knew Liliana and Maria realize. That's when we find out she's one of the girls who already struck down one of the four kings, before the Demon King ever even came to the stage. Once every mana hole was sealed up, Ishua focused in hard, aiming to wipe out the worst of it all, because there was still a bit more pain they'd have to push through. And now the five of them are finally free to go all out in the fight. Meanwhile, Ishua was stuck right there, wrestling with all of it head-on. Liliana was tearing up the dance floor like she owned the night, gulping every last drop of mana from the mana holes. The queen and the people stared in shock as they realized the leaves were slowly coming to a stop before drifting down. Right then, Ishua snaps that things are still a bit off, so they're going to take what they came for. Then he turns to Liliana and yells for her to sprint over and back up the other girls. Now he could finally get control, shut down everything going wrong, and restore the flow of power back to normal. The mages spin in circles, fully realizing Ishua was hunting magic circles all along, and somehow, he still shoves a massive dump of magic power into the Tree of Life. That's a mountain of magic power, way beyond what the elves ever got, and he's got something even bigger to say. If he lets that whole moment build up inside him and lets all that magic pour out, it'll blast the Tree of Life's points with so much power the leaves might even start moving freer on their own. His name was Ishua. Yeah, he was a little strange, but there was something genuinely kind about him. Ishua realizes his synchronization is kicking in, and he just needs to hold on, because one little push more and he'll break through. Meanwhile, the mages blinked and realized the leaves had already stopped falling, like the world itself had gone still. The tree of life surged back to its full power, regenerating at breakneck speed. And just like that, he surged back to life in the blink of an eye. The queen burst into tears and gasped that she could smell life awakening from the tree of life. And with that, the other girls threw everything they had at those monsters, fighting tooth and nail through every single hit they could land, crushing every last thing for good. And the last trace of magic power got completely wiped clean. The leaves finally quit falling, and Purification slipped back into its normal rhythm. Guess they just had to tough it out a little longer, until they noticed it. The monsters stopped moving, and that's when everything changed. It terrified them, then they whipped around, panicked like, wait, what just happened? The monsters were scrambling to retreat, because the purification function was back online. They turned, and just like that, the monsters crumbled, weak as paper. So they pushed through, scrambling to figure out how to save themselves. Basically, that was the whole goal. Then once they finally held the line on everything they could, they marched straight into what was coming next. And somehow Ishua caught her eye, because the queen couldn't even find the words to thank him, but Ishua tells her that he's got one last touch left, so he shoots his hands up, flings open a magic circle, and hurls it through like a finisher. He planted it all around the tree, forging a tight seal that locked the whole place down. The queen lines in and demands to know what that circuit is. It's a tiny one. He thought that magic power tribute was just a purification spell running above capacity, but the queen actually thanks him. Then Julia bursts in, screaming about the problem. Then she crushes Ishua in a full-on hug, and Ishua ends up pouring out his thanks to Diana and Liliana over and over. But he snaps his gaze to the side, and suddenly realizes Maria and Marcella are standing right there. And that's when their faces light up, because seeing Ishua again feels unreal. After they squeeze each other in a tight hug and confess how much they missed him, Ishua finally admits, I honestly didn't think you'd show up and help. It was crystal clear this wasn't just any place, it was a special secret spot, and then, by pure luck, a bird led them right to it, only for the queen to burst in and call out to Manabara Ishua. He's insisting he's the real savior, saving lives, not just him. And the girls were in on it too. Yeah, it was one wild, stacked crew. Yeah, here's the thing, they're not really a group at all. At that exact moment, they were just starting to sync up, and somehow the coordination was unreal. They'd been working side by side for years already, and the best part, the whole village, no, the entire region, got saved, which is why that night was a whole festival just for them, too. Throw your thanks to the saviors and race around the world gathering ingredients so we can brew the best sake for everyone. After digging for answers for days, Ishua finally got face-to-face with the queen. Turns out even a hero wouldn't have it easy, but she's relieved the Tree of Life handled things like that, because it felt like a dream again, until they realized the queen of the village, the guardian of that world, could lose her life in an instant, and suddenly that massive burden is crushing down on her shoulders. The queen drops to her knees and tells him, anytime I need you, just say the word, I'll be there, and he swears she's got him covered. Then Ishua tells her to lift her head and urges her to enjoy festivals like this, because that right there is all he needed. The queen's mood flips instantly. She grins wide and starts cheering like she's finally won. But someone was partying way past what they should have been celebrating. And Ishua suddenly clicks, it's Julia. She's already had way too much, slurring that tonight she's not going to sleep enough. Ishua finally let his guard slip, but she could drink anyone under the table. Then she blurts that the saint can wipe out every scrap of darkness because she's invisible. She's smashed, stumbles right up to Yeshua, and insists there's something even more important. They should drink together. But when he turns back, he hears someone laughing. He finally clicks that it was Liliana who said her feelings couldn't reach Ishua, and then he blurts, what's going on? She shrugs off her own value, says a weak heroine like her is probably hated anyway, then takes off and leaves. Just like that, everything starts spiraling into something way more complicated. And when Ishua glances to the side, there's Diana, right there, watching. They stare at each other and it hits, realization finally clicks. That they were stuck wrestling the exact same tangled mess. Then Diana sprints after Liliana, while Ishua stays right with Julia. The next day he steps back and realizes everything's already calm again. It was Allan who got trapped, and he even begged them not to joke about it, because that kind of treatment was downright cruel for a hero like him. Ishua gets completely thrown off, then the guards snap, insisting they can't free a hero because he's that demon who tried to wipe out the village in the first place. Yeah, and moments like this are exactly why they shove him in a cage, because he could snap his own leg or pull something crazy like that. Right then, Ishua blurts out that he'll lay everything bare to the king because he's done trying to slip away anymore. And right in the middle of all that chaos, they could still swing through the city before they ever reached the royal capital. Meanwhile, the queen beams at the thought of finally going home, and Ishua rushes in to thank everyone for the festival, swearing it was absolutely beautiful. So yeah, everyone had to head back to their own place, the spot they were supposed to return to. Meanwhile, they tore back toward the village where Ishua was. Elias, the receptionist, ends up thanking Ishua a ton for coming back, insisting he's totally fine. Somehow he pulled everyone back together, while things were spiraling in the elf village, and the receptionist kept apologizing like it could undo the trouble. Ishua, though, said that from his end, everything was calm, and he was already pushing to deliver the mission news ASAP. Then the receptionist couldn't wrap her head around it. Those monsters were getting nastier by the minute, and the tree of life was clearly falling apart. And that's how they didn't just crush a subspecies of the Ogre King, who got promoted into a higher class, but also breathed new life into the tree of life itself. The receptionist demands to know who Ishua is, and he answers with a chilling twist. If you really want to know who he is, you'd better ask deeper. He's not some chosen hero, he's just a run-of-the-mill mono-bearer. All the girls behind him shot that idea down, and the receptionist leaned in, asking if this was just meant to be a little thanks request, but he refused to let that slide without turning up the reward. Ishua shrugged and said he didn't need anything fancy, because the 30 promised gold coins were already more than enough. The receptionist says someone as good as him is arriving, and the results are going to be heroic, so Julia figures he truly won't think he needs to do anything big, and that idea is kind of terrifying. Then all this. Liliana's request got approved, and it even looked like she'd score her mission reward too. And now Liliana was about to show off Ishua's magic, so they teamed up fast, because the receptionist insisted on seeing it for herself. Meanwhile, from outside, someone yells, "Leave me, don't bring me with you," and the whole situation shifts on that comparison. A hero stood right there, ready to explode the whole story wide open. Allan jumps in with the messiest, most complicated angle. He calls his companions his group, then straight up labels them his rewards. Meanwhile, the other adventurers act like they already know the whole story, staring at him like, "So who are you?" Ishua fires back that he's already been banished, insists there's no issue, and even admits he almost destroyed the Tree of Life, yet he wasn't trying to spark a war with those people. Ishua admits it's way better he just stayed outside the city on the side there, because the truth is, he can't stop feeling miserable for nearly leaving the others behind in that fancy high-class dungeon. Anyway, Ishua, there was a way, head straight for the royal capital, and spill every last detail to the king. Then he finally locks eyes with the king of the royal capital and spills every last thing that's been going down. At that exact moment, the king snaps that he'd already known what went down, thanks to an emissary the queen sent straight to him. Yet he can't wrap his head around why Allan didn't go alone, especially when it only made everything spiral out of control. And when Allan tries to speak, the king shuts him down, once and for all, then turns to Ishua and demands the truth, and Ishua answers, yes. Allan insists their group doesn't need someone who just pumps out magic power and it lands like a punch to the gut. The sacred sword might be a hero's rare gift, but the real reason their formation works and holds together, every bit of it, was thanks to Ishua. Then Maria snaps and says Allan lied, told her Ishua left on his own, and dragged them into a high-class dungeon, and the worst part, Marcella swears that right then everything got brutally dangerous. And when things spiraled even further, Allan finally made the call to sacrifice the two of them just to claw his way out. So yeah, Allan wasn't the only one left standing alone in that moment, and it was him who got tasked to investigate the Tree of Life, but that's the real twist. Allan lied to the king, and that was absolutely brutal. The second Allan opened his mouth, it was already way too late. The king has already made up his mind. He's stripping his hero title for good. Allan jumped to his feet and begged for a quick pause. He promised he'd be right back. Then he turned to Ishua and told him to get back to the group too, so everyone was covered. Everyone holds their breath in dead silence until Julia finally stands up and says, it was fine, and if he truly believes it's worth becoming a hero, then he should go back and become an incredible adventurer first, because her saint's smile never shifted, and that only left everyone around her a little terrified. Allan tells Julia that if she's pushing him to begin again as an adventurer, then that's exactly what he'll do. But the king snaps back, insisting it was all a misunderstanding, and the truth is, Allan got stripped from the hero spot because his performance never improved. Worse, he sparked a full-blown crisis between the continents and tried to bring everything crashing down, handing the king an obligation tied to the fallout. On top of that, he fed the king false records, and that was a serious crime. And if they stamped him as a criminal, that label would haunt him for the rest of his life. There's no way he could ever live free of it. Allan demands to know why they're calling him a criminal. And yeah, that whole scene was absurd. Then the guards grabbed him and hauled him away. Meanwhile, the king makes up his mind. He's done beating around the bush and heads straight for Ishua. I'm telling you, handling that mess was downright splendid for him, especially with all the disasters he survived his whole life. And if he wanted anything, he'd speak up, right? But Ishua shuts that down fast. No need for a speech, he says. He's already gotten his rewards straight from the guild. Then the king leans in and offers him a domain, a title, even says he's got a fantastic plan, but Ishua can't bring himself to imagine standing as an aristocrat. Julia can't stop gushing. That was incredible, truly extraordinary, and Ishua only nods back, accepting it all like it's perfectly settled. But the girls couldn't make heads or tails of what was happening. Ishua admits it felt like an honor, but come on, they're just adventurers and he can't stop now. He wants to climb higher and higher, one wild step at a time. And right then, traveling that road with Julia, everything around him kept spicing up his life, one thrilling moment after another. The king finally grins and says he gets it. Then he turns to Ishua, the adventurer, and begins. As he throws him his best wishes right there, in that exact moment. Meanwhile, Diana goes straight to Liliana and presses her. So what's next then? Are they really about to travel again, just the two of them? Or if she'll jump at the chance to team up with Ishua, because this is their shot to finally fight side by side, just like they've been wanting. Liliana says she understands, and with that, she decides to make her move and approach. Right then, Maria and Marcella barreled in, shouting at the top of their lungs, demanding they want to join Ishua's crew. Liliana vanished into thin air, completely lost and alone. Right then, Ishua tells them, "You two might be in crazy demand. If you still want to come, let's do this." And Maria immediately fires back that Ishua is an incredible person, because if they stick with him, he could carve his name into history someday. Honestly, it sounds both wild and carefully planned. Ishua says they'd be exaggerating, and he's sure he'd love having both of them in the group. Then Diana turns to Liliana and tells her, "It's your time." Right then, the little girl tries to squeeze out a word, anything at all. Then he leans in and straight up asks if she can join his group. And then right after that, dead silence. Diana can't help thinking she sounded just like a little girl begging to play house. Ishua leans in and asks if she wants to join too, then tells her he's heard her legend, how she even took down one of the four kings to earn a straight shot to the Demon King, so he asks if that means he can bring as many people as he wants. Diana can't wrap her head around what Ishua is saying, because she's so sure that while she stays in the village, he was way stronger, and getting members that talented to join him wasn't easy at all. Ishua whirls back, then Julia blurts out that Liliana is an incredible person, and a true heroine, not some ordinary, just like the others, kind of girl. And every last bit of health finally lined up perfectly. Ishua tells him, "I get it, I understand." And just like that, they sealed the plan. Liliana, the heroine, and everyone else would be stepping into the group together. Liliana is totally lost, begging, "Wait, didn't I want the exact opposite, to join Ishua's group?" But Ishua insists there's no such thing as a hero in the group. He's got to be the leader, period. Natural, automatic, no exceptions. And while Liliana is totally lost, she grabs Diana and asks what she should do, just like Ishua's rules demand. So he just decided to leave things exactly like they were. The Monobara Ishua, the Saint Julia, and the magical swordswoman Maria, three legends colliding in one breath. Marcella, the beloved one, Diana, the holy swordswoman, and Liliana, the heroine who's ready to steal the spotlight. A brand new crew of heroes just got forged. And now they can finally move in sync. While all of this chaos unfolds inside the Demon King's castle, a brutal meeting is underway, where one of the four demons is reborn and orders them to push the front harder. Then the woman from the four demon queens snaps back that the other's mind must be made of muscle, but it's already grabbed by a hero. Still, they wrestle with the question of whether they can pull it back and just keep going like it wasn't a disaster, because at that moment, they're not able to be perfect. Meanwhile, another demon swears the Tree of Life was stuffed with an absurd amount of evil magic power, and that it only got stronger after it was drained. Then the monsters crashed into the village, and those attacks became the perfect playbook for future invasions. Not exactly a bad plan, if you ask me. Then the last one slips in a hunch about the Ogre King, then straight up smiles like he's certain of it, until the Ogre King gets crushed by a tiny hero. It felt downright like cheating. He wiped out every last trace of that miasma and snapped everything back to normal, and nobody could explain how he even slipped into the hero's barrier, or how he managed to rip off all that ornament still sitting on the Tree of Life. So they decide to go straight to the Demon King and ask him face to face if a human can really do something like that. They wanted to corner the Demon King and say, "Your magic power is merging with some wild control, so monstrous it scares even you." And the Demon King was convinced that's exactly why the heroine Liliana ended up at his side, which, yeah, was a terrifying problem. The demons finally got it. They couldn't keep dealing with that anymore, and they told him to pull over. Even after all that back and forth, it only really clicked for them after a while. They demand to know what on earth is going on. Then the Demon King smirks, says, "We've been fighting harder than we've been taking stock, so why waste strength right now?" His foes, a bunch of heroes, even if some of them are still human, so everyone better go in on guard. They needed a hero who could actually work with them, and the Demon King didn't waste a second, straight up saying he was ready to team up with the demons. Then the Demon King cracks his fingers, snap. Allan's face flashes on screen, pure irritation spilling off him because he just got that criminal mark. Then he snaps that it was his fault, straight up, and points out that all of this happened because of it. The Demon King declares this as proof of a fallen hero he can recruit, someone like you, ready to stand on his side. Just as Ishua settled into his carriage, a voice suddenly snapped his focus. They finally stepped into the very territory they'd been talking about, and Ishua cut in, telling Liliana, "We're already in the same group," so she didn't have to keep it so formal with him. After all that, he snaps their attention to him and asks Marcella and Maria straight up if they really want to keep being so formal. A week since they formed this brand new crew, and now they're diving into their very first mission, racing to deliver an elixir straight into the main territory. Then Ishua calls Marcella and Maria over, telling them, "You two already met the lord of the territory we're headed to." Right after Allan had them removed, they rushed toward the city where Ishua was, and along the way, they jumped in to help a carriage packed with powerful potions. Right in the thick of it all, they screeched to a stop at the mansion that ruled the entire territory. When they finally arrived, they were hit with a nightmare, people writhing in sicknesses no one there even knew about yet, and they'd barely made it, because at first all that was waiting was the local chief's daughter. Ishua understood what was happening straight away and told them they'd need to move fast. Then he snapped his attention to Diana. She slips outside and tells him she wants to peek at the mansion. Can she? Diana shoots back, yes. And from that moment on, it was right there, looming in front of them. When he finally gets there, the old man locks in and starts sensing everyone. Maria says he can't believe the girls came back so fast, and that his daughter is doing great. She's going to need a whole mountain of healing potions again. Then the gentleman steps forward and calls it a bizarre sickness, one that's being unleashed across the whole territory. The doctors there are stumped. They can't figure out what's causing it, and the only thing that actually saves people is a fancy, high-class potion that somehow cures even the deadly cases. That's why the herb missions kept climbing. They'd grab more herbs from the neighboring territories from now on and even haul them back to that place again. So the gentleman just had to handle every bit of maintenance, until Liliana cut in and said there's a hard limit, and only medicine can push you up to it. Ishua demands to know what on earth was going on. Liliana blurts out that she's dying to dig into that mysterious disease, starting right now. Then they turn back and Liliana blurted out an apology, because the mission was only meant for them to deliver the potions, but somehow she couldn't help herself and started pushing to investigate. Ishua flashes a grin and promises they'll uncover the cause as they carry a potion to every territory in the village. Since the request is already done, nothing will slow them down long enough to stop and investigate. Ishua says this is exactly what a heroine is supposed to do, but Liliana won't just walk in and finish the mission, not yet. Still, Ishua trusts Liliana completely and backs her judgment. The girl gets hit with the kind of embarrassment that makes her whole face go nuclear. It tries telling her to drop the formality right then, but she just can't. So Julia pushes the moment hard and asks why she ever wanted to investigate at all, if there's something she's been treating like it's no big deal. And when she crushed one of the Demon Kings, he gasped out a warning. There was a darker scheme coming, and he prayed humans would stop it before it crushed them all. Liliana lined in and demanded the demon tell her what it was. And he swore this was a long-game plan, one that would unfold step by step, weakening the Tree of Life, then unleashing a brutal pile of attacks on the village, right as the demon began to back away. He just spilled every detail to Ishua, and Ishua sat there deep in thought, while everyone else in the group, clueless, stared like they didn't know that mess was already taken care of, and now they're wondering if this could be the dark part of some bigger sinister plan. Then the carriage driver shows up and announces, "We're here, first stop," and everyone hops off fast, grabbing those potions they came for. The driver blurts out that those people are seriously weird, like, something's off about them for sure. The driver insists he doesn't have to sprint to fix anything, just pick up missions and keep delivering for steady pay. So with the money those gigs bring in, there's no choice but to take them, and Maria calls it smart, but Ishua shoots that down, saying her boss is totally clueless when it comes to all of this. And she's more than human. Honestly, it's incredible. So after everything, Ishua makes the call to start handing out the medicine, and then he dives headfirst into tracking down what's really causing all of it. Then a gentleman steps in and tells them, I've got plenty of patients in a quiet little place, but they're so far gone they can't even manage to walk. Staring at the mess unfolding for those people, everyone is absolutely stunned, like what they're seeing makes zero sense. They dumped tons of patients into a single house. It was basically the same nightmare as the other places. About 100 people packed there right then, because nobody had the slightest clue what caused the disease, and they didn't know what to do except watch and hope the person could recover on their own. That potion they're carrying actually works, and yeah, the medicines they're delivering won't be enough for everyone. Ishua is totally out of his depth, but he has to mirror Liliana, find something only he can do here. So Ishua takes a deep breath and starts examining the patient's condition. The gentleman reassured him that everything was fine, and he didn't think they'd ever get help from a hero who crushed one of the 4 demon kings, or from the mana-bearer who saved the tree of life. Then Ishua stepped up and told the gentleman, just let me get close enough to your forehead. Even if this whole thing is way beyond Ishua's usual experience, if the demon king is telling the truth, and he's always able to find something. Then he smashes a burst of power into the gentleman's head, and the guy stares, totally confused, like, what is happening? Yesu steps in and says his magic power balance is wrecked, so that's why he's been getting sicker and sicker. The gentleman demands what kind of magic power balance that was, and Ishua snaps back that they were running on too little dark magic power, right there, where things like that would only make everything spiral into even more mess. Because every single creature is packed with magic power, spread out so perfectly across every attribute that it's basically balanced to the last drop. So Ishua seals the status of someone's magic power with a single touch, and then he just can't help wondering if he can tip that balance too. And with just a tiny surge of power, he slips it into place with the child, and you can see it, he's getting better and better. The boy's mother bursts with relief that he's finally okay, and the gentleman starts to wonder, maybe that potion they're carrying isn't just medicine, but the thing that fixes the body's magic power balance, like that's exactly why the symptoms turned around. Because that kind of problem always throws the same symptoms at you, Ishua can handle it, while the gentleman is totally stunned, baffled that Ishua keeps checking the magic power balance again and again, then places the power in fists with the right attributes to help the people who need it most. Ishua moves through them one by one, and Julia jumps in too, desperate to help, casting healing spells to give the clinic a much-needed boost. That gentleman couldn't wrap his head around it, how that girl was flooding the whole place with healing magic, how Ishua wasn't the only amazing one there, and how the entire crew was packed with insane potential, while Marcella was already thinking, I have to get the magic potion ready for everyone. Liliana snaps that it's not only the disease, there's also the missing dark magic power fueling it, and that's when her curiosity finally ignites. If this was really magic power causing it, then there had to be something they could do. So right after they decided to watch the village like hawks for anything weird, Diana and Maria went straight to the villagers and questioned them to find out what was going on. Then Ishua watches everyone file out, and he nods like it was always coming. Of course, they'd give it everything they had in that moment. Right after Ishua realizes he can't slack off and has to go all in. Time kept rolling, and soon everyone was popping their meds like clockwork. The gentleman noticed Ishua was there, utterly worn out, and blurted out, "Are you okay? What's wrong?" Because the moment something felt off, fear started creeping in. But Ishua swore he'd told everyone to rest, then they burst awake anyway, ready to jump in and help. Julia says, just like I knew, exactly the way Ishua handles things. Then Ishua grins and shoots it back, saying, and it's thanks to you too, without your magic power, I'd never keep healing magic at this level. So the gentlemen are left staring in disbelief, swearing it must have been a miracle, because how on earth could something like that even happen? And when Ishua saved the Tree of Life and the whole village, everyone started whispering that he'd soon become the new emperor of history. Ishua snaps back, saying that was an exaggeration, and he makes it crystal clear it wasn't just him who saved the Tree of Life. Meanwhile, Liliana finally closes in, and Ishua wastes no time. He demands, what happened? And she blurts out that she uncovered something huge, something that can't be ignored. Right then the crowd erupts, saying those two are flat-out unstoppable. And Ishua claimed the leader was Liliana, not him, and said every single member executed everything flawlessly. And on top of everything, the crowd kept screaming for Ishua. So they tell everyone to calm down. Meanwhile, outside the village, a whole crew of ruthless people stood ready, jaws set, waiting to unleash the assault on that village. Then they spin around and stare at the person right behind them, asking if it's his first job, like, was he really any proof of it? In that village, people were desperate, and he made a killing selling those medicines to fight the disease. At the start, Allan blurts out the truth. Those healing medicines are all fake, and they're got effects way stronger than anyone's supposed to know. They burst into laughter and tell him it's finally time to face the truth. He's a criminal. And from this point on, Allan has only one path left, turning into a criminal to survive. A few days after Allan got stripped of his hero status, he marched into the novice city, and when he spoke to the receptionist, she couldn't even wrap her head around it. But he can't even land the lowly missions. He only hands those missions to folks whose names are stained with real criminal trouble. So Allan snapped in anger and stormed out of the city, cursing that his mark keeps him from landing a decent mission, and blaming Ishua for everything that went wrong. Right then, he can't even pay for a single night's stay, until the man steps in and says, "Looks like you've been through a whole lot." Allan blurts out, "Wait, who is that guy?" But he just shrugs it off, says he didn't want to be rude, and points out that they came with a mission right for the hero. Allan shoots back, "So what's going on?" Then he can't help but wonder, are those guys part of some criminal guild? At first, Allan totally refuses to admit he doesn't want to join a criminal guild. Then they hit him with, "Fine, we'll gift you everything you need." If he ever needed cash, meat, or food, he'd likely snatch it right off those missions. Allan starts to hold back, then he snaps, "I'll decide after I've gone to see for myself." So yeah, he probably said yes, because at that exact moment, he was shoving food into his face like there was no tomorrow. The criminals demanded to know why he was stuffing food inside the carriage, and then Allan snapped back, slipping out in a hurry, telling them to shut up since he wasn't even hungry, because he sure as hell wasn't about to tangle with something like that. Then Allan blurts out that he never imagined he'd be shutting his life down under the watch of some criminal's guilt. Though hey, if the reward is real, this is at least the first move in the timeline, right? He's got to plan the next step. Allan shot a question, what were they hauling? The criminals smirked and said it was medicine, claiming a bizarre disease had struck the neighboring territory and that they'd sell it for a fortune. Then Allan pressed again. Wasn't this supposed to be a legit job? The criminals demand to know if it's legit, and the answer hits hard, because it's the Phoenix pill, infamous medicine said to hit you with insane effects the moment you use it. Brutal headaches, nasty side effects, hallucinations, even the feeling of being possessed, the kind of thing the kingdom treats as a crime. Drug transport was definitely illegal and a real crime, but Allan snaps that he's out. He won't stand for that kind of mess. But the criminals taunt him, calling him stupid, gloating that he's already stuffed himself, and even bragging that he already knows the plan, so if he can somehow slip out of this fight and save his own skin, he might actually make it. Then Allan gets paralyzed on the spot, and the criminals laugh that he shouldn't worry. When those hours finally hit, they'll already be halfway to the next village, leaving no one able to recall their faces, while the villagers who don't know any better will cheer them like heroes. Those guys were the absolute bottom for Allan, like he didn't even want to be them, but then they start slamming the boxes down on the ground. They kick things off in a starving village, and that's when Allan gets his first mission, right there and then. Then Allan snapped on a mask. They marched up to a gentleman and blurted that they had the cure for a brand new royal capital medicine. Now they finally knew what sickness was striking them, and Allan quizzed the guy if this was actually what was happening. The gentleman froze, then shot back, asking if an incredible doctor was coming straight from the royal capital, because transporting him all the way here was causing a huge headache. Then right there, they welcomed the doctor with open arms to get him safely to their place. Allan can't wrap his head around how the crowd actually swallowed it and believed. Then he finally looks around, and his eyes widen as he realizes the place is packed with people. He couldn't explain it, but something felt wrong from the start. Then he heard voices outside, people thanking him for everything, and realizing those hero squads that came to the village were suddenly showing up here too. So yeah, everyone finally started feeling way better, and honestly, that was a good sign. No matter what chaos unfolded, Ishua was always right there, showing up when it mattered most, ready to steal every last bit of glory. But those spots were strictly his alone, like the two places everyone said belonged only to Ishua, while the women turned on a dime around him like it was perfectly normal. He was basically a hero getting hurled through history like it was crashing down on him. Then Ishua clocks that Allan's been there all along and demands what's going on, only for Allan to take over the conversation and start talking instead. He flung the pot up and declared he had the cure for every disease they'd ever seen, right there, in front of them. Allan blurts out that that was the cure, and it's way cheaper than any other potion people were using, so nobody needs to panic anymore. Ishua fires back, asking where Allan even got the medicine. And the gentleman can't stop wondering what's going on as Marcella, the one who always took such careful charge of the potions. She was nearby, so he chose to watch. Then it hit him. She knew an insane amount about medicines, like genuinely everything. Then the girl tells him it was a phoenix pill, one deadly drug that wrecks your mind, and that playing games with people's lives, treating it like the cure for everything, and even just owning it is already a crime against humanity. Allan gets hit with the truth. This is the end. Ishua can't believe he'd ever get pulled into something like that, and Liliana, acting like the hero she is, refuses to turn a blind eye to a situation this dangerous. With all that in mind, Allan bursts into laughter, snatches the kid beside him, and yanks a sword into his grip, because this was all thanks to the mana bearer. Then Liliana snaps at criminal Allan, asking if he really thinks this mess isn't getting heavier by the minute, and tells him to back off, because if he doesn't, he'll find out exactly what's coming for that child. But they step straight into a world where fantasies come alive. Allan clamps down, refusing to let it all spill. And he can't stop staring, squinting into the distance, dying to figure out what the heck that was and what it meant for everything that was happening. The kid was already gone from his arms. Liliana had zipped the child away, straight into the world she and they had built. And right then, Allan won't be able to stir trouble with anyone ever again. Allan stops everyone in their tracks and snaps, "Give me a second, talk to me, and you'll finally understand what's been going on." But then he looks ahead, and there they are again, those same eyes staring back. Then Allan shoots back, asking if he realizes what he just walked into, the criminal guild, yet those eyes start zeroing in on him again. But Allan begs for one more shot, and right then, he promises he'll boost everyone's ratings. But those eyes struck again, rage detonated in his chest. And boom, he ignited the holy sword. Ishua blares, "That was awful." And right then, he somehow forged a magic protection shield. Allan couldn't stop staring, wondering what on earth was going on. A sickening wave hit him hard, and he knew something was really wrong. And that's all thanks to Ishua's magic, because it supercharges mana recovery, so if his concentration isn't high enough, his body pays the price and he gets sick. Yeshua once told himself long ago to try and become calmer, but in the end, he never listens to anyone. No one hits rock bottom like he did, so yeah, he didn't train anywhere near enough. Ishua blurts out an apology, then somehow snaps into a direct assault on Allan. And then he crumples to the ground. Then they walk up to everyone and break the plan down. They're hauling Allan straight to the royal capital, and that move is the best way to keep probing that territory. They've already drained every last drop of Allan's magic power, so nobody has to fear he'll unleash the magic sword's abilities. But selling illegal drugs was like sliding past the very lowest point on the criminal map. Maybe he'd get exiled, maybe executed right then, and Julia insisted it was Ishua's fault. Diana leaned in to Liliana and fired off a question. "Did you already find something that can cause this disease?" Liliana's like, "You can't miss it when magic hits. It's loud and obvious, and it was probably right there near the fountain." In that fountain, a magic circle glowed, and anything it touched got twisted into dark magic power. Ishua realizes it might be the reason, so he screams for everyone to back up and move forward to clear it out, but Liliana snaps back. "No, this isn't just that, because something is throwing pieces everywhere." And yeah, just like you'd expect, it all played out exactly that way. That whole incident was planted, made to happen on purpose. Then the criminals leaned in, eyes locked on Allan as they dragged him straight toward the royal capital. He got snatched up fast, but since it was a promise, they had to force that guy to corrupt him into yet another criminal. It felt like the client who made the request was right there, standing in front of us. She just smirks as the criminals spit out their threats, like they can actually make good on what they promised. Then she yanks off every piece of clothing she's wearing. The criminal promises the payment will be pure cash, but only if she's willing to pay with her body too. But then the attack hits them like a hammer, and they end up dying for it. A demon named Undine was there, and she hissed that their reward now was to go find their own death. Meanwhile, she leans in and tells Allan, the former hero, everything. How far he sank was terrifying, so much so that he might turn on humanity because of it. We jump back to Ishua and his crew, racing toward a spot that's supposed to be the absolute worst, where the territory's sickness piles into the sickest, most concentrated mass of all. That same spot everyone whispers about, the Calamity Dragon's resting place, was an enormous cave, looming like a living nightmare. A week ago in the village, Ishua was on a mission, scouring every corner for those magic circles that siphoned mana and moved it from one place to another. And yeah, that was probably the whole problem, because it was popping up all over the city, not just in one corner. The only places with it were the low magic spots, where they were secretly trying to stash dark power, so anyone who could sense magic would catch it fast. Maybe it was tied to whoever was working with the whirlpool, but if that's true, they wouldn't realize it until they triggered the magic circle. And once it fires, they can't rein it back, because every other magical flow nearby is linked, and it all drags each other into chaos. So if that's the situation, they'll need more power, because if it's only this, they're already staring at the nightmare question of how long it would take to rip every magic circle out of the whole territory. Then Marcella suddenly catches on, maybe a core is the one siphoning all the magic power. Everything would crush down into one single core, just one place, and if they destroyed that focal point. She says if that's true, then it might be something amazing. Then she points at the mark and tells them, follow the magic power trail from here, you'll trace the whole path, set up a session altar with that magic first, and start everything from there. Julia starts wondering how Ishua would redraw the magic circle, and realizes they're trapped in a restricted zone of machines, where messing up is deadly. But Ishua insists, I just have to keep them all linked, so the other magic circles can follow along, test how the status syncs, and pinpoint every malfunction, so the connected parts stay locked in place when the special ones shouldn't even be centered. And then the magic circle starts tracing the flow of magic power, rewrites it, watches it in real time, until everything can be rewritten. Not a single person in the room understood a word of what Ishua was saying. But once Ishua clicks that everything's actually fine, he suddenly feels it. His magic circle starts chewing through his magic power. Because it was being carved out inch by inch, the path finally opened up before him, leading to a place so far away it felt impossible. Issue 1 clocks it. So he decides to chase that swirling magic power beyond the city walls, and there's a road that splits to a bunch of places, all leading back to one single spot. It was the sheer monster size of his magic power that left everyone speechless. And he drove straight for the mountain as the finish line. Then Ishua comes back, demands a map, and marks the exact spot right on it. At the base of that mountain, there was this massive cave, and it looked like everything in sight was getting swallowed up and carried away. Liliana points and whispers that this very spot is where a dragon was sealed away. That dragon cave, everyone whispered it was the lair where the legendary monster slept, guarding secrets in the dark. The whole room froze, everyone was terrified out of their minds. Then they need to dive into that cave. Marcella swears there's wild magic all around them, sealed up tight to keep detection spells from sniffing it out. A trap sat right ahead and Ishua clocked it instantly, like, right in their face. In a normal party, people would have gotten wiped out by traps alone, so they kicked into action with magic power detection, and somehow they were reading the traps too, just so they could push forward. Then Maria blurts out that the calamity dragon is the monster from old fairy tales, one that wiped out more than a handful of countries, and no matter how many heroes fought tooth and nail to seal it, they never even managed it in the first place. That dungeon had to be high class to even exist, but right when they showed up at the very end, a new group realized the dragon wasn't just resting. It was knocked out in a deep, dead silent sleep. After that, the dungeon was judged as worthless, so they yanked it out, sealed the entrance shut, and it was over. The stone that was meant to seal the entrance was ripped off too, and now anyone can slip inside and dig up the secret level info, assuming they can pull off the perfect, we're the heroes vibe. Diana couldn't even wrap her head around the legendary monster slumbering there, guarding a mountain of mana, and of course that meant they had to unleash some magic power to break the calamity dragon's slumber. Even if they somehow got word to the king, dragging an army his way would take forever, so if they even managed to rouse that dragon, there'd be nothing left for them to do. So yeah, they've gotta rush over ASAP, before that curse keeps tightening its grip. But anyway, everyone around there started freaking out, because that was supposed to be a high-class dungeon, and now the pressure hit hard on every single person. They even pulled in more members than Allan's group, which means they had a real shot at pushing all the way to the end. Last time Maria and Marcella got hit with the worst kind of trouble, but now, right in front of their eyes, things might finally start turning around. And then right out of the shadows, monsters start crawling in. And now Maria and Marcella both decide it's finally time to strike back, because everything that happened in the past demands revenge. And just like that, battle ignites. And Diana, she was over the moon to get back out there and fight monsters again. They don't even need a ton of magic power to take down monsters of that type, and they can even save their units for a high-class dungeon like that. Still, they pushed ahead. Marcella alone sensed it. this magic path split into three, and she knew it had to be a trap, set to scramble anyone trying to get in. Liliana told him, "Leave it to me." And boom, she taps into a glowing map right on her screen. Julia blurts, "So what about the other marks? Because those definitely aren't random at all. They're pointing straight to rooms that hold the key. Like they were priceless treasures." And she downs a potion, a magic power potion at that. Suddenly, Ishua's mind clicks. On her very first run, she can somehow sketch the whole dungeon and snag the exact item she wants right off the map. It's not just strong, it's straight-up broken power. But because they were stuck in the toughest situation, they pushed through a high-class passage with that group anyway. Everything would have been way easier if only it was that simple. As he arrives, the whole crowd makes room for him. Right then, a massive portal towers ahead of them, and that's the main area. He can't stop wondering what the heck is going on. And the moment it creaked open, then it hits them pure fear. Diana clocks the stench right away, a brutal rot meat smell that makes your stomach drop. And all day they'd been waiting, now a crowd packed in, staring right at the dragon like it was about to strike. Ishua ended up getting absolutely terrified. Realizing the dragon wasn't just in trouble, it was slipping into something far worse, rotting away as it got totally lost, while its massive size loomed like a nightmare. And just like that, a bunch of mages show up and spot the protagonist with his crew. Then they press them with one question: "What are you doing here?" But here's the twist: they aren't human, and they aren't demons either. Then Liliana steps in and calls herself a heroine, and right away they start digging into what's been going on out there near that territory. She warns them she's an enemy of the Demon King, and suddenly it clicks. They've been living as his followers all along. And it still manages to terrify everyone, because they're right there with the Divine Chaos Society. Ishua blurts, "So what was that society?" And it turns out it's a religion that bends the knee to the Demon King, teeming with nutcases who swear humans can be saved even after they've died. Which means this was built for the Demon King himself. Then they say the whirlpool is hungry for their voices, but first they've got to revive the dragon, and everyone will spot it the second it wakes up. They were chasing the Demon King's recognition at any cost, so they decided to resurrect that colossal dragon, and honestly, that plan was pure madness. Then they arm him with spears and send him charging to clash with the protagonist's group. And of course everyone starts gearing up right away, because her enemies aren't just heretics, they're the real deal. But still, they're human, so they need to capture people and squeeze out every bit of information. The Long One tells them all, "You're brave warriors, there's no way you could just stay calm." Then they start cutting through the chaos, and everyone gets knocked out, one after another, until every last one of them got snatched and hauled in. And the leader lines in and demands, how in the world could something like that be this easy? It felt like the Divine Chaos Society was about to get its big moment carved in stone, yet they couldn't accept it would all collapse like that, especially when they were forced to push it forward with an unfinished state they couldn't fix. And still, even if they go through with something like that. He spent his entire life hunting the Demon King. Then, with a final breath, he declares that death is pure salvation. And then he hands the dragon dark magic, igniting its power and bringing it back to life. Then every last drop of dark magic power gets poured straight into the dragon, so it surges with terrifying speed, growing by the second. The dragon started to wake back up, and then boom, an ear-splitting roar shook everything. They felt it right there when the dragon finally started to wake up. The second he wakes up, he unleashes every ounce of magic power straight into the air. Every single one of them trembled, terrified of what could have gone down in that exact moment. Ishua stared ahead, his mind buzzing with one burning question: what was about to happen? And that's when the cave finally caved in right down the middle. Liliana was terrified, and Diana clocked that long ago, because that fairy tale beast didn't just roam, it slaughtered islands, wiping them out with monster-level power that was way beyond what it should have ever had. And it turned out to be a calamity dragon. Julia blurted, "Is everyone okay?" But it wasn't some real attack, just a breath blast, and they still couldn't wrap their heads around how that single breath tore the mountain apart. But another attack came barreling in, and one of the dragon's arms had already shattered. Then it detonated the lightning, every last bit of power blasting out at once. And just like that, the whole place went wide-eyed. Everybody nearby got scared out of their wits. The dragon finally hauled itself back to its feet, and they stared in shock as they realized the mountain was already gone. Everyone around him was terrified in that moment. It still stood tall even after losing an arm, because that body wasn't finished yet, and something inside it was still unfinished. Panic spread through everyone trapped there. Then they realized they didn't have a chance to clean up those people right then and there. They should have carried out every single mission and read the danger for what it was. Then Liliana rose up to be used as magic, and right on cue her staff erupted in brilliant light. Right after Diana dropped that bombshell, she was staring down a legendary dragon. And it looks like they're out of options, because that monster is coming, and they're going to have to face it. Right then, Liliana hands Diana her powers, so Diana can finally swing the sword of creation, and the second it's in her hands, she attacks with everything she's got. Marcella whips out her magic and conjures spells like a storm, one right after another. Hurl thunder at that dragon, and right then, everything changes. Marcella grabs her weapons, just like Ishua taught her, and that's when everything goes off the rails so. He goes for everything all at once. Then they couldn't help but ask themselves, did it actually work? Even with the dragon gone, its shadow stayed razor-sharp on the ground. Diana went pale with fear. They figured they could keep going with high attacks, but then the dragon slammed in with everything it had, hits flying everywhere, so hard that, in that moment, they realized the force was downright absurd. The ground vanished without warning. Then Liliana finally saw the truth. Her fantasy world's ground was cracking under a massive, brutal force, and Ishua's mind immediately raced as he started hunting for his next move. Because that monster's attack would wipe every single one of them out in a single blow. Liliana clocks the danger and blurts that they can't just eat an attack anymore. Now they've got to dodge everything flying at them. Yet even in this fantasy world, that monster's magic resistance is brutally high, and they still can't make it all work. Then Julia launches a full-on direct assault, coming at him with everything she's got. But it ends up breaking off a piece of the dragon. And then it clicked, yeah, it actually worked, and they were probably grinding through all the purification right then. But right then, it started regenerating, like a comeback it couldn't stop. So they had to wipe out the whole monster right then, because when everyone got distracted, the arm got ripped away, only for it to grow back again, and this time they couldn't purge all that dark mana in one go like they did to the Ogre King on the Tree of Life. With that much dark power pouring in, Ishua had no clue how long it would take to shut it down, and it could drop them with an instant death strike that comes flying right at them, so they couldn't afford to waste a second. Then hope started to crumble, and everyone felt the floor fall out from under them. But Ishua shuts it down. Once he's fully recovered, maybe then they'll try something. Julia's attack landed hard, ripping through and causing real damage, and somehow they managed to weather it. Ishua says that plan might work, or it might crash, depending on the combo in their lives, because it all hinges on whether Ishua truly needs that support and whether everyone can stay okay with it. Ishua kept his cool, yet everyone else stayed locked in too, trusting him completely from the very start, even though he still hadn't laid out the plan yet. Maria says he won't have to do stuff like that, because from the very start, the whole group has been stuck right around Ishua, and Liliana swears everyone trusts him with their lives. Ishua finally realizes the whole world is counting on him, and in a place like this, he decides he has to put his faith in everyone right back. He's absolutely thrilled, every single person tells him, and it hits his heart like a victory. Then he turns to Maria, Marcella, and Julia, and demands they unleash their strongest attacks straight at Ishua. Then they're totally baffled, like nothing makes sense anymore. As the days dragged on, Diana and Liliana kept wrestling with that dragon somehow, and the danger only kept climbing. Diana thinks they need to be way more careful right now. She tells them to feel the calamity dragon's tension before it all snaps. Then Julia presses Ishua, asking if he's truly ready to do it, and Maria shrugs it off. Maybe they won't be able to. But Julia storms in with everything she's got, just like Marcella. Then Maria joins the beatdown too. Every attack comes crashing straight at Ishua, so he figures that this brutal strike might actually help more than anyone expects. Then we rewind a bit, watch Ishua lay out the whole plan to everyone, pushing for a tribute transformation, something most of them had never even heard of, because magic attributes can get reshaped and converted into a completely different attribute. But once it's done, you risk losing the very cause, and the power drains hard too, which is why this was never something people could use just a short while ago. Ishua tested his theory, and he pushed it this far so he could convert everything flawlessly, yet they all worried it might not just solve things, it could also twist Ishua into something truly terrible. With this trick, he steals the power of every mage for a glorious strike, targets the enemy's exact weak spot, and wipes them out. Then the moment it's over, he heals right back up. Maria couldn't stop thinking it, just one blast, one strike, and she could unleash several 100% made attribute spells at the dragon, detonating it with brutal, monster-crushing damage. That's why they were lining their attacks straight at the monster, because if Ishua messes up and gets himself killed, they'll be set back hard for now, but they can still hold out until the king's army shows up. Then Julia blurts out that no matter what happens, there's no way he'd ever risk his own life, she's certain. And Ishua got completely swallowed by the unknown. But he'd build his plan on Julia's magic, then grab control of it first, no hesitation. Then Ishua jumps in and unleashes his power. Because he already proved he can pull it off with Julia's chant, he doesn't need to analyze anything. And somehow he slips out and moves at lightning speed. Then Marcella unleashed her divine thunder, stronger than anything he could ever muster, yet because they'd been traveling together for so long, Ishua seized the moment, took control of it, and flipped its attributes into thunder greatness, fusing it with Julia's fresh glory, and the result was straight up incredible. Marcella was totally stranded, staring at it like she had no clue what she was looking at. And now it's Maria's cursed sword, of course it has to cause trouble. Even after Ishua poured his heart into it, that rare blade still wouldn't cooperate, and it all comes down to one thing: how well he can control it. But it was a total mess. Maybe he won't pull it off in time. The girls are terrified, so someone shouts out a cry for help just to pull attention in time. Then it was already too late. Those thoughts couldn't be stopped. Then he twists his mana into distortion and charges that attack like it's about to explode. And with that, he wipes it out for the moment, buying Ishua just a few precious seconds to think. He claws his way through it as fast as he can. Right when he finally pulls it off, it just might be the thing that saves him. The attack slams into the ground with full force, rattling everything in its path. Everyone's terrified, and just like that, right at that exact moment, Yeshua finally blurts out. And somehow it hit him right on time. He somehow fused every attack into one. Now he's left staring at the next move like, what do I do from here? Ishua breaks it down. When they cram mana so tightly it can freeze spacetime for a moment, then yeah, that means he actually slowed spacetime, and Julian's stomach drops because that's exactly the spell he remembers. The one that showed up a few years ago. Right then the dragon locks onto them from the distance, watching their every move. And then lunges at them with everything he's got. Liliana snaps, be careful, and the calamity dragon feels every single move, like he's locked onto their every breath. So from here on out, they need to keep their eyes on Ishua, because he's not someone you can ignore. So after all that, they snap into action and start slicing those dragons up with everything they've got. And once they finally realize they can't scratch a thing, they just get ignored completely. So Julia rides her brand new glory and slams straight into the dragon's wings. And just like that, everything turns a bit too careful, too slow. Ishua starts asking what she was doing, but the damage is already done. Liliana grabs Ishua and demands he push forward with everything he's got. Then he unleashes his fresh new glory power, straight up showing off. So the dragon fired off yet another laser, and it was brutal because it wasn't just defending anymore, it was smashing back in retaliation. Then Ishua declares that every ounce of that magic was used with razor-sharp precision. But he was just messing around, totally playing it off. He casts the enchantment, and just like that, it ignites into real magic. Diana lunges in, unleashing everything she's got, with the sword of creation blazing in her hands. The calamity dragon finally snatches the energy vase they've guarded for ages, and it sends Diana's tension crashing down because she's losing interest fast. Right then, Ishua and Diana's sword lined up their enchantments, using the glorious magic's conversion powers. Then bam, that final attack was unleashed. Diana steps in and tells him, trust me, leave it to me. And the dragon gets cleaved cleanly in half, right down the middle. With Ishua's magic blasting straight into the dragon, detonating in a violent explosion. Maybe it worked, but now he's staring at a new nightmare, wondering how on earth he can bring down the calamity dragon. What's missing is to see exactly how they'd handle all that breath. It's rushing straight at them, so the girls freeze in fear, and Ishua snaps that their plan never accounted for this, admitting he totally forgot they could fight back as soon as it happened. But they mustn't let hope slip away. He can't stop asking what to do next until it hits him. The classes where the teacher insisted that magic, just like humans imagine, was bound to come, built from theoretical magic, and once you remember that, everything that seemed impossible starts to wobble. So that meant he could teleport anytime he wanted. He clung to a belief he'd once dismissed, insisting this had to be true. Now Ishua hurls himself to the ground with everything he's got. Ishua tried to carve out a magic field and stall the spell just long enough to stop it from pushing forward, because that power of his was wildly, shockingly unusual. They had to wonder, could anything even be done in a land like this? With high-density mana, the whole world starts bending, and if you pack the area with a super heavy mana density, it can slam the mana ahead of them right back in their path. Then we barely had a second. If the space breaks mid-flight, the coordinates would snap into the wrong connection. which carves out a gap, so Ishua slips into that next space. And right then they start freaking out, asking, where on earth is he? It was a tear in the world itself, between tremor and causality, and if he got lost in that void, there'd be no way back to the original world or the original time. He has to grip on tight, or his whole life slips away. Julia's smile flashes across his face like a spark. And he'd make it to that place, no doubt about it. No matter what hits him next, he won't stop. Right after that, the dragon's attack whips past them, roaring so close it steals the air from their lungs. And everyone's shaking, panicked voices shouting, "Where's Ishua?" Everyone was completely clueless about what was happening right then. Liliana's eyes flood with tears as the crying finally spills out. But then someone slips in behind them, unseen. Ishua went down hard right on top of Julia, and the first thing he did was blurting out an apology. He asks if she's okay, tells her he used Julia's markings to slip back to that world, and before anyone can react, she bulldozes into Ishua with one crushing hug. Diana shoots him a question. Was he really sure the dragon's blast would land on him? And somehow he pulls off teleporting using the theory. In modern magic, teleporting is supposed to be impossible. Then Ishua suddenly remembered that he'd already tried this in his past life, how they managed to split space and time, and how teleportation was basically a miracle of space. And just as Marcella asked what on earth that meant, he realized that revelation still wasn't something they could hand to humanity yet. Even if the theory checks out, it won't happen unless they've got magic power on the same level as Ishua. So yeah, in the end, only Ishua can reach that height. So Maria decides to save all the compliments for later and pushes things forward. Then she steps up and asks, "Wait, is that the end?" And now, somehow, they were actually standing toe-to-toe with the legendary Calamity Dragon. Liliana steps in, straight up asking Ishua if they can finally head back to the castle and spill everything that happened. Then, when she manages to say his name by herself, she jolts with embarrassment like she can't believe she pulled it off. So yeah, a few days slid by, and then they rushed to the king with the full story, because what they claimed was so unreal he couldn't wrap his head around it. How a tiny team of just 6 people somehow managed to take down the Calamity Dragon. Long before recorded history, ancient tales swore those heroes barely managed to lock that beast away, yet even after the perfect element of surprise. The king demands to know what they were talking about, because he heard that, right then, some islands got wiped clean off the map, and the only option left is to build a statue of them in the middle of the plaza. It's actually a great idea, but everybody begs him to stop, saying it would be way too embarrassing. The gentleman orders them to gear up for the expeditions, and the king shuts it down with one simple move: this is a banquet now. But the second Ishua drops that he's got something he wants to tell the king. And he's convinced Allan was right at the center of it. The king is totally clueless now. And he tells Ishua, "Listen, this is the one time I've got to say it straight to you.